you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Ordinary Council meeting for November. We open the meeting at 9 a.m. I'd like to start today by paying my respects to the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today and throughout our Southern Downs region, and pay respect to their elders past, present and emerging. We have Pastor Humphreys with us today, who is going to lead the prayer.
Thank you. I'd just like to share a short passage with you from Romans 13, if you wouldn't mind. You're going to find it very applicable to your context. Everyone must submit to governing authorities, for all authority comes from God, and those in positions of authority have been placed there by God. So anyone who rebels against authority is rebelling against what God has instituted, and they will be punished. For the authorities do not strike fear in people who are doing right, but in those who are doing wrong. Would you like to live without fear of the authorities? Do what is right, and they will honour you. The authorities are God's servants, sent for your good. But if you are doing wrong, of course you should be afraid, for they have the power to punish you. They are God's servants, sent for the very purpose of punishing those who do what is wrong. So you must submit to them, not only to avoid punishment, but also to keep a clear conscience. Pay your taxes too, for these same reasons. For government workers need to be paid. They are serving God in what they do. Give to everyone what you owe them. Pay your taxes and government fees to those who collect them, and give respect and honour to those who are in authority. So God enjoins upon the people who live under their governments to actually respect them and do the right thing. But also, conversely, the governments have a duty to the people to make sure that they are running government and making decisions that are in the best interests of the people as well. Let's have a short word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we are so grateful that we can come together today, and I pray that as this council meets and they discuss the issues relevant to the people of the Southern Downs, that you will bless them with understanding and wisdom, and that they will make decisions in accordance with your will and in the best interests of the people who live in the Southern Downs Region Council. Lord God, this is my prayer. In Jesus' name I ask it. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Pastor Humphreys. We have condolences today. Of course, the passing of Mally McMurtry, who served on council for 17 years, will be led by Councillor Bartley, who had the honour of serving with Mally on council.
Yes, thanks, Madam Mayor. It certainly was an honour and a privilege to serve a term with Councillor Mally McMurtry. As she was affectionately known, Marilyn was her proper name. We attended Mally's funeral yesterday, Madam Mayor, you were there as well. Vic Bernisi gave a stirring eulogy and painted a rather unusual picture of Mally's life, how she was so forceful and powerful as a lady. She was a lady that gave respect and got respect, and did so much for her community, and then when she became a regional councillor, gave so much to the region. She will be sorely missed by her family and by the community and by the region, because she not only looked after this little part, she stretched out to the local government women and was president of their association for many years. She was passionate about local government, and she cared about everybody's problem, because everybody's problem was the most important problem for her to look after. So we can certainly all take a page out of Mally McMurtry's book, and she will be sorely missed.
Thank you, Councillor Bartley.
Yeah. I would like to acknowledge the passing of two staunchly loyal and very family-proud Warwick ladies. Maureen Willett, who was the wife of former councillor Len Willett, passed away recently, and also Gay Barrett, who many will have known for her dedicated service as a nurse. I know that both ladies will be greatly missed by their entire families and by all who had the pleasure of coming in contact with them.
Thank you, Councillor Watling. And I would like to give condolences to the family of Fran Moxham, who was a well-known kindy teacher at CNK Stanthorpe over many years. Fran passed away on November 19, and St Joseph's School has released a letter to families to confirm her passing and offer condolences in counselling. Fran was married to Ben Moxham and had a son Patrick in Year 5 at St Joseph's School. The Stanthorpe Cancer Support Group recently held a very well-attended fundraiser for the family at Diamond Vale Estate, as reported in one of our local newspapers.
Thanks, Melissa. I just would like to add a little bit about Melly too. I didn't have the privilege of working with Melly on council, but she was definitely one of the people that I admired as a councillor and looked up to, and I just thought it was great how she led the way in the community. And Ross is right, she was very community minded and cared about everybody that she came across. So she was one of the reasons as well that gave me the inspiration to run for council. So I would just like to add that to Ross's comments and thank Russell for his comments on those two ladies. And they were all ladies of the time as well. Melly particularly was a real lady.
Councillor Dean.
I would also like to have a condolences for Fran as well. I had the privilege of meeting her last year, and she would be sorely missed. She was a lovely lady, and condolences to her family and friends in Stanthorpe.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. Councillor Pigeon.
I would also like to just pass on condolences to the Denny family with the passing of John, and also the Hoey family with the passing of Zane, two very important members of the Allora community. I'd just like to pass my condolences on.
We have one more man there. It would be remiss of us not to recognise the passing of Pete Kemp. Pete Kemp ran for council and then ran for mayor. Very outspoken person that cared about the community. Comes from a very old family at Burnaby, the Kemp family. His great-grandfather, German Kemp, and my great-grandfather were very good friends. And Peter's father was certainly entrenched in our community, affectionately known as the TV repairman. He replaced all the valves in the black and white television sets and would pick the TV up and fix it. And Peter had the same knowledge as his father and same ideals, and he was an interesting fellow. If you ever had to sit down and have a coffee with him, he was worth having a chat to, believe me. But he was iconic in our community. He took on the RSL presidency for a while to contribute to that organisation, which he did, and we thought he'd be with us for a lot longer, but unfortunately was taken far too early in the scheme of things. So we pass on his condolences, especially to his mother, June, who will certainly miss him.
Thank you, Councillor Bartley. Moving on to attendance and apologies. We have all in attendance and no apologies. The reading and confirmation of minutes. We have a recommendation that the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on Wednesday, 16 October 2024 be adopted. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Richters and a seconder. Councillor Pigeon, thank you. All in favour? Unanimous, thank you. And a recommendation that the minutes of the special council meeting held on Wednesday, 13 November 2024 be adopted. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Dean, thank you. Seconder, Councillor McDonald. All in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Actions from council meetings. We have a recommendation that council receive the report and note the contents. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Windle, thank you. And a seconder. Councillor Harslett. Any comments on that before we move? No. All in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Declarations of conflict of interest. Councillor Pigeon, what item number?
15.5.
Thank you. Councillor Windle?
15.2 and 15.3.
Thank you.
15.7.
Okay.
12.1 movement.
12.1. Okay. Any others? No. Okay. Starting with Councillor Bartley for item 12.
Yes, Madam Mayor, the usual sale yard. If there's any decisions apart from just receiving the report, then I will leave it.
Thank you, Councillor Bartley. Councillor Windle in relation to 15.2 and 15.3.
15.2, Madam Mayor, I have a declarable conflict of interest. I understand that a future tenant of that building may be associated with a company that a relative of mine is employed by, so I will leave the room for that one.
Thank you.
15.3, a declarable. Although I have a declarable conflict of interest, I believe I would reasonably be perceived to be impartial, as it is approximately 20 years since I was a board member of that committee. Therefore, I wish to remain in the meeting and ask my fellow councillors to decide if I may participate in the debate and the decision-making process.
Okay. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor McDonald and a seconder, Councillor Dean. All in favour of Councillor Windle remaining in the room and participating in the vote? That's everyone other than Councillor Windle, thank you. Moving on to Councillor Pigeon, item 15.5.
Yeah, 15.5, I have a declarable interest. I am a customer of Bartrands, the business in Allora, and I wish to leave the room.
Thank you, Councillor Pigeon. And finally, Councillor Wantling for item 15.
I have a declarable conflict of interest as my daughter and son-in-law own a property that adjoins the development. I will sit out of this one due to the potential of development could have to increase the value of those properties.
Thank you, Councillor Wantling. Okay, moving on to the mayoral minute. Should I move to add the late agenda item in here as a procedural motion? Yes, okay. I propose that we amend the agenda to include item 15.10 as a late agenda item. As it's a mayoral minute, I don't require a seconder for that. Is there any discussion before we move to a vote on that? Yes, Councillor McDonald.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, to the CEO. Could you possibly just enlighten us of the rules regarding late agenda items? What period of time do we have to accept them? Because this only came in 2 days ago.
You're normally required to give 3 clear business days. In this situation, though, you'll be aware that it relates to an event that's being held on New Year's Eve, and given the potential for some discussion around it, it was felt that it should come to the November meeting rather than hold it off to the December meeting. It's a decision that's made under Council's local law. It can be made under delegation, but given a previous decision that was made under delegation regarding a similar event, the staff determined that it was best to put it to this meeting. And I think we also flagged to the Council last week that it was likely to be late as we were still awaiting some information, and there were a number of questions you might recall that the Council has raised with Nicole at that CPS.
My concern is that obviously there was some planning involved in this event coming forward, that perhaps the organisers of the event should have anticipated that it would take some time for council to discuss and put it out for public opinion. So therefore I would question as to whether it should be debated at this meeting if the public hasn't had a chance to actually look at it for an appropriate amount of time.
I would suggest that we should probably have that debate in item 15.10 and determine whether it should lay on the table because of the lack of notice and consultation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I'll add that down to 15.10. Okay, all in favour of adding that late agenda item? That's unanimous, thank you. Before we move on from the mayoral minute, it's not actually a minute at all, but I would actually with this reign simply like to thank the Director Infrastructure Services and the Acting Director Planning and Environmental Services for their quick responses to numerous residents who have raised concerns over the last few days. I think it's really great that your teams have been so responsive, and I just want to thank you for that and let residents know that it is on your radar and you are responding to those inquiries. Moving on, we have no notices of motion, no correspondence, no petitions or joint letters. We do have a portfolio report from Councillor Harslett. Councillor Harslett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will take the report as read. Everyone, I think, has had an opportunity to look at just a couple of items of note in there. The RADF application process has now opened, so for people in the community who are wanting to submit an application, please go and have a read of the guidelines and an assessment of that there, but they are open at the moment. The Australia Day ceremony awards and citizenship ceremony is going to be going ahead at Dalveen State School. Thank you to the Community Services Department for the work that they've done in that area there. And I'll just flag too, there is an intention to run some buses from both Warwick and Stanthorpe to Dalveen on that morning for people who wish to attend the event but perhaps don't drive or don't wish to drive. So that you could just keep that in mind. Nominations for those awards are open until the 1st of December, so not for much longer. So if you are wanting to nominate someone from the community in any of the award categories or the event category, please, there is still time to do so, but please do so quickly. And the final one, that just to note that Youth Council has been completed for 2024. We'll be going ahead obviously again in 2025, and that's sort of all in process. The Community Services Department again are working on getting the student nominations for that at the moment, but that will happen with some changes next year which have been discussed between Deputy Mayor Cheryl and myself, who are the two councillors who have attended all of those meetings this year, along with obviously the staff in that department. So we'll keep you abreast of that as it kind of forms up. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Harslett.
Question through you, Madam Mayor, to Melissa, also remember this, to Winner. Very detailed and comprehensive portfolio report, and it's good. I was unaware that we'd chosen Dalveen as the place for the Australia Day awards. Was that done by delegated authority, or how was that decided?
It was discussed at a strategic session.
We can't
The staff.
make decisions at strategic
Well, it wasn't a
sessions.
decision.
It was discussed
Council.
then.
The
So-
staff would,
It's a staff
advising
thing,
of-
yeah.
I'm just mindful we can't make decisions at those sessions.
yes,
It,
no,
wa-
it was
it wasn't
not a
my decision, it was the
It
staff.
was not a decision of
Yeah.
council, it was a decision of the staff who organised the
So I was delegated, basically.
well, it's not a council decision that it's not a matter that requires a delegation. It probably, if staff raise it as one where they're going to proceed, and we want to pull it up to council, we can probably exercise that. But the location of that event is not a matter that needs a council decision. It's operational.
Historically, it has been with your indulgence, that historically it was a council decision. That's why I'm asking.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. Councillor Bartley, my apologies, I can't hear you down here.
Sorry, it's just the location.
Right. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, is Councillor Bartley suggesting that he has an alternative option or suggestion?
I'm suggesting it should be a resolution of council where the venue is finally decided not to conduct those events, particularly Australia Awards. It's been very controversial in the past. We've had some 600 signature petitions come in regarding where they would like to hold these types of events, and I think it really should be a council resolution where we decide to hold those events.
I think if council wants to be the decision maker for that and take it out of the operational arena, it's probably appropriate that we look at amending the policy to make it clear how the location is determined. I'll defer to the CEO to, if we want that to be a council decision each year, we do that.
That'd be
In the
the
policy.
appropriate place to have it in the policy.
Yes.
I mean, and I'm not aware of what the wording of the policy is off the top of my head, given it's a once a year event. To pick up on Councillor Bartley's point, yes, it may have been done historically, but for future events, that would be then quite clear as to whether the council is a decision making authority.
Yeah, we might add that to the next discussion on the policies coming to the December meeting, Belinda, for going forward, obviously not for the event that the staff are already organising, but for whether or not the decision is operational or council going forward.
If Councillor Bartley wanted that decision to be made this year, we could include it into the resolution to accept this report.
Yes, is there?
We can say that we receive the portfolio report and we endorse the location. No?
Yes, that's. I think
The B-note or something. Yep.
Can we just make sure everyone speaks up a little bit, given the rain on the roof? It's making the volume sound a bit difficult.
We were just determining whether or not we need to endorse the selection of the location for the Citizen of the Year award.
So probably in answer to
question being raised, Councillor through you, Madam Mayor, is currently under the policy there is no requirement for the location to be resolved. That can be included in a future amendment. The reason Dalveen was chosen by staff is it's fairly central, so going to a single location this year we want to be quite central, with the intention looking into future years to potentially going down the path of expression of interest from the community, so we actually get some buy-in and then we bring those expressions of interest back to you as a council to say where to next. So we are conscious that by going to a single event this coming year, time is very short. We need to lock in locations and sort out transport logistics fairly quickly, so that's why staff have made the decision they have.
Councillor, basically a council can amend the resolution to endorse it.
Yeah.
It's still tied to Morena's report.
Yes, okay, so do we want to,
I'm only making a decision if Councillor Bartley wanted it, but if not,
I'm not moving the motion on there because in actual fact I didn't agree with originally changing them from having a separate Warwick event, so I'm not going to move a motion to support something I didn't agree with.
I think in that case we can leave it as is. The staff have made an operational decision based on a number of criteria, including cost and the single event. So I think, but we will check that for going forward so we're clear next year what the process is as regards council. Okay, the recommendation that...
Madam Mayor, yeah. Madam Mayor, just regarding the Southern Downs Youth. Madam Mayor, regarding our youth in the area, I attended St Joseph's High School, Warwick State High School and Scots College award ceremonies and still have a few to go. I have to congratulate all involved. I was amazed by the high standard that all the schools across the Southern Downs maintained, not to mention the musical talent of the students throughout the area. We definitely have some incredible schools.
I mean, I'd like to just congratulate Councillor Harslett on being the first councillor to present a portfolio report in our new council.
Yes, and we are going to have portfolio reports regularly now going forward. So I look forward to seeing portfolio reports from all councillors in the coming months. We have a recommendation that we receive the Inspired Communities portfolio report. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Windle, thank you, and a seconder. Councillor Dean, thank you. All in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Moving on to the Executive Services Report, item 12.2, 12.1. We have a recommendation that Council note the contents of the Organisation Information Reports. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor McDonald and a seconder. Councillor Dean, thank you. Do we have any comments or discussion on that item? Councillor McDonald?
Yes, Madam Mayor, from a community services point of view, in regards to disaster management, since the last ordinary meeting, this community has experienced fire, storm, heatwave and flooding. We're pretty incredible as a region. I must say a huge thank you to all the RFS and volunteers in the community and council workers who have supported the community through each of these, well, I won't call them all disasters, but certainly they've been trying times for the community. I'd also like to point out that the DDMG did an exercise, Aurora Nights, last week, and that was a very constructive exercise. That was in regards to a major communication outage within our district and continuing plans to see how the various councils would actually deal with that. I had to leave partway through it, so I'll defer to Councillor Richters to actually speak about the ending of the exercise. But from my perspective, from what I saw there, it was an excellent exercise. There was a lot of contribution coming from the various councils around the area. Sometimes the goalposts would change from time to time, but certainly I think everyone handled it very well. Councillor Richters, if you wanted to discuss the last portion of it.
Up to you, Councillor.
Look, Madam Mayor, I did want to talk about it today. So since Councillor McDonald's already done the segue, I guess, it was a great exercise. The exercise was a little bit unrealistic in its overall scenario, but the scenario itself made us think about a lot of things. So the scenario was a complete communication outage. We had no way of communicating via internet, phone or radio, and how would we deal with a flooding event in our region during that particular time. And it was great. We come up with some pretty weird and wonderful ways for how we would deal with that scenario. Now, I don't think we'd deal with that scenario how they presented it, but there may be times where we have communication outages that we do need to seriously consider how we communicate with people and how the community is prepared to respond when they don't hear from us. And I think that there is actually some work that we need to do in that space, and I'm pretty sure that the manager has taken that on board, and we might be doing some adjustments to some contingency plans based on the exercise that happened.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Richters. I would like to, just on page 14 of the report, highlight that all of our outstanding and non-current policies are being updated and presented to Council by the end of the year. That has been an enormous exercise. I'd like to thank particularly Belinda Armstrong for the work that's going in there, and it addresses one of the key concerns that has been a long-running concern of our Audit and Risk Management Committee. So it's good to see that this Council has a commitment to ensuring that we bring our policies up to date.
Sorry.
Councillor Harslett.
I just wanted to make a comment there on item report number 2 in there, the Southern Downs Youth Council meeting.
That's the next agenda item.
Oh, sorry.
So we're on 12.1.
Madam Mayor, you're up to
That is
Attachment
12.1.
Yes, sorry.
That is sorry.
I'm on attachment 1 of 12.1.
Sorry.
But yes, moving on to attachment 2.
Yes?
Yes. Because I don't think, is everyone okay with attachment 1 now? Yes, moving on to attachment 2. Yep.
Just a comment, it is obviously bedded there within that section of organisational reports. I would like to request, because of the changes that are happening with the Youth Council in 2025, that in future Youth Council reports be entered as a separate item so that they can be discussed by the students as a separate item rather than within the body of the rest of the board report. So it's probably a comment to the Community Services Department who deal with that request. Yeah, I've got that.
Madam Mayor, in regards to the Youth Council, the Council resolved at the last Council meeting that a report would come to both Council and the Youth Council on report on the actions of that particular Youth Council meeting. I note that there was no report that was presented to the previous Council in regards to the actions of that meeting, and I was just wondering whether it's still on the agenda to come to us.
I'll take a notice of this, one of the staff to answer that.
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, it needs to come back.
Yeah, so December meeting, Michael?
Beg your pardon?
The December meeting?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, anything on the attachment 3, the YMCA reports? I have one comment on page 46 in relation to the car park, the request there from the Y. I know that staff have advised that there are some issues with that. Could you please pass a response on to the Y as to the car park, just so they understand the current position? Thank you. And anything in relation to the attachment 6?
Yep. Are we up to 4? The first action?
No, the Y was, oh, yes, sorry, 3. Oh, mine goes straight from 3 to 6. Why is it just that? Yeah, okay. 4 and 5, which don't appear in mine.
Mine goes to 6 too.
Yeah, mine goes to 6.
We are on 12.1, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
And there's only
definitely
5
4 and 5
attachments.
in there, but.
No, mine.
It's confidential.
It goes from
Oh, that's why.
3 to 6.
Marion, that was an
Thank
easy
you.
answer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, yes, they are confidential attachments, so we will just skip over them to attachment 6, where we were. Nothing on that. Oh, Councillor Watling?
Madam Mayor, just in the attachment 6, infrastructure, services, parks and operations, I noticed an independent chain of responsibility gap analysis has been booked to identify improvements in our compliance with heavy vehicle national law. This is such an important initiative that is being rolled out. In recent months, there's been a massive amount of heavy vehicle accidents throughout Queensland, and we can never afford to be complacent with our safety in relation to heavy vehicles.
Thank you, Councillor Watling. Attachment 7.
Madam Mayor, could I ask for an update on short-term accommodation?
In relation to,
What actions we're taking?
I'll take that on notice, Councillor Wiggins. I can't give you an answer from the top of my head, and I'd need to talk to Nicole, who's in charge of.
There was an update the other day, but we can recirculate that.
There was an update by an email in response, I think, to Councillor Harslett. Councillor Dean.
Yes, the complaint that came through to a number of Stanthorpe councillors
Yeah.
from one of the accommodation providers.
Oh, it came,
Yeah,
councillor.
but that was only,
Yes,
that was
yes.
a general update, but we were happy to bring a report back through CIS, if that helps.
Yes, please.
I mean, just go back to 12.1, attachment 6, in relation to the Connolly Dam core samples. Do council get a copy of those results, or can we get a copy of the results of the core samples?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we'll be bringing a presentation to a CIS on the Connolly Dam update, and we'll have a whole lot of information there, and from there council can decide what becomes public or otherwise.
Right, thank you.
Yes, Councillor Dean.
Just wanting to speak to attachment 7 in regards to the garage sale trail. Just wanted to thank everyone involved, the staff members that were involved in making that happen, and also the community members that registered a garage sale for those 2 weekends. I think it was a fantastic result, and it diverts a lot of goods from landfill, so I think that's a fantastic outcome.
Thank you, Councillor Dean. Yes, Councillor McDonald.
Madam Mayor, just in regards to the PHN information session that was given to councillors about a week ago. I think it's a fantastic initiative that's going ahead, the Medicare Health Centre, Medical Centre, and I thank the current director, acting director, in regards to participating on council's behalf. Health support in this region, as we know, has been quite it's been difficult for us to get practitioners and to get the support that we actually require. I note that we also don't have any surgeries apart from those that go through Headspace for referrals that actually bill people within this region. That is a huge issue, I believe, for people and affordability, and I saw this raise its ugly head during the drought where people were trying to make a decision as to whether they paid for the gap to go and see a health practitioner or whether they paid for the pharmaceuticals. That's a frightening concept to me as a counsellor. I don't want people choosing between having to go and see a GP and choosing their medication. So I'm hoping that when this centre does open, with the support of practitioners within the area, that we actually will have the ability to bulk bill and assist our community further.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald. Councillor Windle.
Thanks, Mayor Melissa. Just regarding the works out at the LEYBURN tennis court project, I know that a lot of the LEYBURN people are extremely excited about this project and looking forward to having it come to full fruition so that it can be used. It will be well utilised by the community and visitors, I believe, to the region as well, particularly over the course of when they have their big major event out there with the LEYBURN Sprints, when it brings a lot of people in. I'm sure we'll see a lot of activity on that tennis court project area. So well done to everybody involved in making that happen.
Thank you, Councillor Windle. Okay.
Okay.
Yes, Councillor Watling.
Attachment 7, planning and environment. I noticed our environmental officers are conducting mosquito surveillance in Stanthorpe in response to a request from Queensland Health to monitor presence of the mosquito that carries the dengue fever. Is this in relation to positive cases of dengue fever or just a random request?
Through you, members, we'll have to take that on notice and come back to you later.
No, thank you.
Okay, if we can go to a vote on that one, all in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item 12.2, we have a recommendation that Council adopt the attached schedule for Council's statutory meetings for January to December 2025. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Richters and a seconder, Councillor Bartley. All in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Moving on to item 13.1. We have a recommendation that Council receive and note the financial performance report as at 31 October 2024. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Richters and a seconder. Councillor Pigeon, thank you. Do we have any comments on that report?
Mayor, question for the CFO. Could he just briefly describe for us what his feeling is of our overall financial position?
Okay, just overall, where we are in terms of operational revenue, we are tracking slightly ahead of budget by 2.2 million. A lot of that is mainly to do with operational revenue that has come in. It's already to prior year. It's a timing issue from the budget point of view. We are slightly tracking behind in terms of water consumption based on our original budget estimates. That is something that we are keeping a close eye on. In relation to operational expenditure, again, we're sort of tracking in line with budget. We are probably flagging a few things as a risk. So potentially, from a depreciation point of view, that is something we're keeping a close eye on because we are tracking slightly ahead of budget. But in terms of general employee expenses and the fuel expenses, they're sort of tracking in line with budget at this stage. So it's not a major issue at this point in time. In relation to capital revenue, again, we have received some flood funding relating to prior events. We have got some funding that we have received for capital projects for this year. So as part of our Q2 budget review, we will need to make sure that the timelines for capital funding is aligned to budget. So there is a gap at the moment from a budgeting point of view. So overall, at this stage, we are sort of checking in line in terms of where we want to be. But again, sort of keeping an eye out. Overall, from a cash flow point of view, having delayed the rates this year due to obviously different reasons has meant that our cash flow is sort of tracking slightly behind. But with the rates coming in February, March next year, again, we are sort of not at any point of risk, mainly when we talk about cash flow going forward. So I think we are overall probably at a good point.
Thank you, CFO. Any other comments before we?
Just one, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to note the borrowings report, how much it has reduced. It's in a much healthier state than what it was when I was first elected in 2016, when we were under the close watch of the Treasury. It looks to me as if it's been probably reduced by 2/3. So I think the last two terms of council, it's probably come down a third each. So that's a good indication of how everybody's working towards reducing this, and I'm sure it will continue to reduce as we go forward. So just want to make note of that because some people aren't aware of how much that has progressed.
Thank you very much. Okay, if we can move to a vote on that one, all in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item 13.2, the audit closing report and management letter. We have a recommendation that council receive and note the final management letter and closing report relating to the 2023-2024 external audit. Do I have a mover? Councillor Richters and a seconder. Councillor Harslett, thank you. Do we have any comments or questions on this one?
Just got one through you, Madam Mayor. On the operation, the financial external audit report operating surplus ratio, the graph indicates that council's operating expenses exceed its operating revenue, mainly due to the timing of a financial assistance grant. My question is, Belinda, how will it affect us in the next financial, if the next financial assistance grant's late in the next financial year?
Thank you, Councillor, through the chair. So the financial assistance grant that we've received in July actually relates to this financial year. So technically, from where we sort of see, that doesn't impact us going forward because we actually received funding for this year. But what could change the dynamics a little bit is if we revert back to the previous period where we get funding for next year, this year. So this might mean that we might end up with two fixed funding in one financial year, which would mean that we most likely finish in an operating surplus, putting pressure on the budget the year after. But there is something that we might just wait and see.
Thank you. CFO, I'd like to point out that again we've made quite significant progress since the election in relation to audit. There were 9 prior year issues identified in previous audits, but a number of them have now been resolved and closed out. So I think we're moving on the right path as regards some of those outstanding issues from the previous term. Particularly, again, there's a reference in the report to the council policies being overdue for renewal and review, and certainly both our internal and external auditors are happy with the progress being made on updating our policies. There's also a reference to contract management processes, and again, obviously we've been doing some work in relation to ensuring that our procurement processes are appropriate, particularly when using local buy. I'd also just like to mention, Councillor Windle mentioned borrowing before. I think it's instructive for people on page 97, if you look at the ratio of leverage. Council's leverage ratio is very low, it's at 0.8, and it's much lower than the target for our council tier, which is about 3. So it's just, I think, we have made progress on the borrowings, but also there is a level of borrowing that's appropriate for a council, and we clearly have capacity if there are large projects to be able to fund those in a generational sense rather than putting all the pressure on one generation. With a multi-generational infrastructure project, we have the ability to stretch those payments across the different generations. Any other comments on the audit report? No. If we move to a vote on that, all in favour? Thank you, and unanimous.
Thank you.
Item 13.3, the ICT Steering Committee Terms of Reference. We have a recommendation that Council endorse the revisions to the ICT Steering Committee Terms of Reference. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Harslett, and a seconder, Councillor Kitchen. Thank you. Do we have any comments or questions on that report? I'd just like to point out that these revisions bring us in line with other councils where councillors have a representative on the ICT Steering Committee to ensure that the strategic element of our role is reflected in some of the big strategic and risk issues that ICT have in all councils. It's an area of high risk, obviously with the growing number of cyber attacks and issues with IT, so I think it's really good that we as a council will have representation on that committee.
Okay. I'd just like to comment that I think that we are probably a little bit behind the 8 ball when it comes to technology in our council. We're certainly behind other councils in Queensland when it comes to our adoption of technology. And I hope that your contribution to the steering committee will mean that we can progress faster towards being a more up-to-date council.
Okay, all in favour, Councillor McDonald?
Can you clarify that comment, please?
No, a comment through the chair, and I think we might leave that because I actually, I also feel that Councillor Richter's has strayed off the topic at hand, and I think it's probably, unless you really want to press it, Councillor McDonald, I think we're going down a rabbit hole with some comments that were off the cuff and didn't relate to a steering committee.
I'll withdraw, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, all in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item 13.4, we have a recommendation that Council receive and note the contents of the operational plan quarterly review July 2024 to September 2024. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Harslett, and a seconder, Councillor Dean. Thank you. Do we?
And then I have a number of questions. In relation to 4.1.1, can I request staff provide an update on the Vic relocation?
That has already been requested from the CEO to staff. And
Which relocation?
the Warwick Vic.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that'll be
it's
coming
being
back
done.
through CIS.
Right. In regards to the customer service centre improvements, I note in the operational report is on hold due to budgetary constraints. Is there any conversations happening at the moment in regards to how we can improve our customer service sellers?
Through you, Mayor Melissa, we've actually probably stalled that for quite a while. Given different priorities, that sort of went down the list a little bit, but happy to reignite that at some point when I have a discussion with the CEO and see if it is still a priority.
Madam Mayor, through you, it might be worth having that discussion at the same time we're discussing the depot improvements. And I think Nick's got that listed for a future CIS as well. You can combine those two.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Secretary.
In relation to 4.1.3 capital works, noted as only being at 15%. And there's mentioned that there's a strategy that's going to happen to get us back to 90% by the end of this year. Is that strategy able to be shared with councillors?
Once again, Nick, has that on a future CIS?
Yeah, yes, and through you, Madam Mayor, I think the good news, and I wasn't going to comment on it, but in Mr. Singh's report on the monthly budget, we're now at a total of spend and committed of 30%, 30.9%. When the CEO and I first came here, we were at 6%. So I think we've had a major turnaround in the ship, and that's to all of the staff getting on board with some of the change we've made, and we look forward to presenting our new way forward at a CIS, as the CEO said, and I think it's been a really good improvement.
Well done. In regards to 4.3.1, there was an employee survey done. Has there been any action plans developed as a result of the employee survey?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, Robin was talking about that yesterday at our senior leadership team meeting. She's, I think, had discussions now with all the relevant managers and supervisors, and that'll form in. And then, so as a result of those discussions, and obviously what came out of the survey, that will lead to an action plan, which we'll be sharing with all the staff over the next few months.
Excellent. And lastly, Madam Mayor, 4.4.1 procurement training, it says it's ongoing. Can we be advised what procurement training has taken place?
Might have to defer to someone at the back.
Sorry, so the chair wasn't clear on the question, but I think it was about procurement training.
So the operational plan says that procurement training is ongoing. So can you advise us what procurement training has been taking place?
So what the procurement team does is we get training with new starters. So we will be in a session with new starters on a one-on-one basis, and then also we have training in groups. And we are due to go out for major training after the procurement policy is submitted. Potentially with a larger session where we'll be sitting down with managers and coordinators and working through the changes that the people proposing revised.
Thanks.
I have some items here. Item 3.2.2 in relation to the Country University facility. Council actually no longer has involvement in that project, and that should probably come off the operational plan at this point in time. Council is ready and willing to assist the Country University Centre Board should they require assistance from Council. But our requests to be involved in that board, whether as a member or an observer, our multiple requests have not been approved. So at this stage, Council is merely a supportive bystander on the University Centre, and probably therefore it can come off our report. Once they launch in the new year, the board will reconsider Council's involvement, so we will wait to see what happens once the centre is launched. And the other item I wanted to reference is item 4.4.1, the delegation register. While it says on track, I think I would just note that it has been off track. Council's delegations should be reviewed at least every year, if not each 6 months. This council's had not been done since 2021, and despite being ready to come to this new council in April, was not brought forward by the previous CEO. So I think it's good that we have that back on track, and that the delegation register will now be brought into line for regular updating and brought to council for approval. Any other comments? Questions? No. All in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item 13.5, review of policies. We have a recommendation that council adopt the reviewed and amended policies as presented. We're going to amend this because there were some late comments on some of the policies. They will now come to the December meeting. Can I remind you all that we had that session on the 30th of October, so comments should have been received well before the agenda was issued with those policies in place. And in future, can you please get comments on the policies back in time to allow staff to deal with them before they go into the agenda. So the highlighted policies will be coming out of that recommendation. Do I have a mover for that amended resolution? Councillor Pigeon, thank you, and seconded Councillor Windle. Any comments or questions? No. All in favour? Thank you. Unanimous. Moving on to item 13.6. We have a recommendation that Council advise the Department of Resources that Council resolves to relinquish trusteeship of the following reserves described as Lot 51 on Crown Plan L181 and Lot 52 on Crown Plan L181 and delegate authority to the Chief Executive Officer for all negotiations in relation to the relinquishment of above mentioned reserves. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Richters, thank you, and a seconder. Councillor Windle, thank you. Any comments or questions on that one?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to thank staff for taking on board the suggestion for this. It makes good common sense that we wouldn't continue down the path of continuing with leases with the Royal Fire Service, given that they're now a department of the state government. It makes much more common sense that we would just simply relinquish this land back to the state government for the state government to manage as they would with any other government department. And I think that there probably are other examples of where this could happen across our region, and no doubt we might consider those as they come up. But I think this is a good thing.
Fantastic, thank you, Councillor Richters. Anything else? All in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Moving on to item 13.7, the minutes of the Audit and Risk Management Committee. We have a recommendation that Council receive and note the minutes from the Special Audit and Risk Management Committee meeting held on 14 October 2024 and the report from the Chair of the Audit and Risk Management Committee for the 2023-2024 year. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Harslett, thank you, and seconded Councillor Pigeon. Any comments or discussion? Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Madam Mayor, on page 4 of the report, they're talking about the cultural journey and that there's it remains a high strategic risk. Can we possibly, through you to the CEO, have some discussion in regards to why that is at high strategic risk?
Through you, Mayor, I think that might be a question that you might hold until we are addressed by the Chair of the Audit Committee today. And perhaps it might be a question better framed to her, and I'll be happy to add a contribution. But she's obviously been the Chair of this committee for a long period of time. I've been here for 9 or 10 weeks. I think perhaps if you could frame the question for her, and then I'm happy to contribute.
The only concern I have, Mr. CEO, is that it's here in black and white, and obviously the community would be looking at that saying, well, the cultural journey remains a high strategic risk. That's quite vague in the statement, and if we're not, I mean, from a transparency point of view, we should be discussing why we've got a high strategic risk.
I agree with you about transparency. I think my basic take on that at a very high level would be the fact that you have currently got an acting CEO, you've got 2 of your 3 director positions vacant, which won't be filled until after the new CEO starts, hopefully in January, and you've got a director of infrastructure and engineering who's been here for 7 or 8 weeks. And I think when any organisation goes through that amount of change in a very short period of time, Clearly there's going to be some cultural issues that are going to be addressed after that happens. And clearly I think that's where the wording of the statement, including the word risk, has come from. Because this organisation is in a state of flux and there will be further change when those key roles are filled. With the council then still has 3 years of your 4-year term, roughly, come next March, and a corporate plan review, as the Mayor's already flagged, and a whole range of other initiatives that I think the council will be pursuing with that new team.
Thank you, Mr CEO. I appreciate the briefing.
Thank you, Councillor McDonald.
While we're on page 4, I'd like to just point out a few things from that report. I think it's really great that the chair of the Audit and Risk Committee is pleased about the robust review strategy in relation to audit recommendations. The committee had expressed disappointment at the lack of engagement from the in previous term, and they are very happy that they are getting more engagement from the current leadership team and from council. And particularly they say the changes to the elected member representation are yielding insightful opportunities for discussion and development of recommendations to support an enhanced governance and control environment for council. So I think the message overall, while we're keeping our eye on those high strategic risks, the message overall is that the Audit and Risk Committee are very happy with the direction being taken by the current council.
Madam Mayor, in relation to the culture comment, the staff survey results have been presented to the Audit and Risk Committee confidentially as a confidential business item. I'm not aware of them coming to council. That hasn't occurred, has it?
No, only through the Audit and Risk Committee.
Right. Do we intend to present those to council?
You can request that. I would say, based on my experience, that would not be normal. It is operational. I appreciate the council, the elected council has an input into the overall culture, but there's a lot of information in there that I don't believe should be necessarily shared with the council, the elected council.
I would support the view that if you're going to encourage staff to be open and participate in staff surveys, I think you have to create an environment where they feel comfortable in doing that, and I would certainly be guided by the manager HR and by Robin, who's been doing the surveys, as to whether they thought it was a good idea to do that before we ask for anything like that. I think they are such useful tools for an organisation that I would hate to negate some of their impact by us getting involved in something that is more on the operational end.
It should just be noted, Madam Mayor, that the results of the survey are completely confidential and unable to be identified for individuals. So if there is any concern with that.
Well, I think picking up on the Mayor's point, if you were going to do that, you'd need to share that with the staff up front and tell them what they were going to be used for and who was going to look at them, regardless of the confidentiality. And to be really blunt, we already had a fairly low turnout. And I can't see that would have been being encouraged to be any higher if the staff had been told that it was going to be shared, the results were going to be shared with the elected council.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, all in favour of that resolution? Unanimous, thank you. Moving on to item 14.1 in the Infrastructure Services Report. We have a recommendation that Council commits to support the cost sharing arrangement for Department of Transport and Main Roads to resurface the parking lanes of Victoria Street between Albion Street and Guy Street, Warwick, and allocates the necessary funding as part of the 2024-25 Q2 budget review. Do I have a move for that?
Question first for you, Madam Mayor, regards that.
We'll open it up after we have a resolution on the table. Do we have someone to move? Thank you, Councillor Wendell. A seconder? I'll second it so we can put it on the table. Councillor Bartley, question?
Suggested cost. There's a budget shortfall there. Just want to know where we're going to get the money from. We'll have to write a fee to pay for it. I just don't want to know which project potentially would suffer. Are we on the right one?
So Through you, Madam Mayor, can I just talk more broadly to the concept? I think one of the things that this council might have been criticised before in the past is that we have works done by DTMR, because we've got a lot of shared roads where we have allocation of responsibilities where DTMR do the centre running lane, and then we're left with parking lanes or the ancillary areas in the road reserve. So one of the things we wanted to do is make sure that we coordinate more, and I think I spoke about this in one of the first meetings, about actually making sure that if there's work's going to be done and it's disruptive, that we also do our ancillary or our parking lanes if the asset also deserves a reseal at the same time. So this is the concept around that. And so we have to be better organised and aligned with DTMR's plans as well, which at the moment is work in progress. This is one of those items that have been brought up by DTM that they will be doing some works, and it is budgeted accordingly. And we want to then piggyback to make sure that if there is any disruption, we do our works concurrently. And you're right, Councillor, we will have to find the money in the budget review too, but I think it's a really sensible thing to do, and I think if we don't do it, we'll be open to criticism that why didn't the council do the ancillary works at the same time. So absolutely we'll be looking at it in the budget review. With all projects, there's ups and downs on budgets, and we will find the money within other budgets. And we also potentially have some reseal money left over from the reseals that we've currently done as well. So it's not an extraordinarily large amount of money, but I think if we don't do it, I don't think it's a really common sense approach to working together on these joint DTMR and our local roads.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm not going to disagree with the Director. It's the most cost-effective way to do it. There's no doubt about that. As I say, I'm always conscious of our budget shortfalls. I'm more confident when we're told where we might be taking the money from, that's all. If it's out of our operational budget, given that we've got a wet season coming up, I'm very concerned. We'll need every dollar we can to put back out on those roads. We need to probably I'd be more comfortable if I knew roughly where that money was coming from. It's not the first time we've ever done it. We've collaborated with the Department of Main Roads many times to do reseals when they're in the area, and it's just very cost effective. The only other thing I'd point out, it says 150,000 depending on the tender price, so it could be higher or lower, so you're going to have to build in a bit of contingency there as well.
Councillor Fidger?
Agree, Madam Mayor. I agree with you, Director, that it is very important that moving forward we are working with TMR to get a better collaboration, to be better organised and have planning under control.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and thanks, Ross, for your question, because I had that question written down here exactly to ask the same one. So my thing is with this, do TMR give us a projected future works that they intend to do, so that may be going to affect our budget on those shared roads? Do we know what's coming up so we can put it into our budget before we have to go and take it from something else?
And through you, Madam Mayor and Councillor, it's an excellent question, and that's what we're working towards. At the moment, we got late notice of this project, otherwise it would have been incorporated in our original budgets that were put up prior to myself commencing. But we do want to take the opportunity when we know about these, but you're right, and we want to make sure that when DTMR have their forward planning, that our budgets reflect those adjacent opportunities in our planning, and we will do that.
So following on from that then, because I've looked at that road and I can't understand why DTMR would be putting that as a high priority to fix. It doesn't look like there's anything wrong with it to me. So is there something wrong with it that I can't see?
Yeah, so through you, Mayor, part of this works by TMR is to ensure that the additional work that they're doing with respect to the pedestrian crossings that we have done similar to the ones in the CBD. So when we're doing that, the works on the TMR road hasn't been done for quite a number of time, and that's the reason why they have using that opportunity to be there and do the resurfacing on the same time. In terms of the shared parts, shared areas that council manages and maintains, checked, and as per the report, we haven't done any works in the shared zone for a number of years, and we haven't done anything to maintain our assets.
So the only criteria around which DTMR feels that this needs to be done is a length of time. It's not actually an assessment of the quality of the road.
No, it is. They're doing the resurfacing because they have identified there's a need to do it.
That's what I'm asking, what is the need? I can't see the need when I drive along that stretch of road.
I think the Wombat crossings are a project of DTMR generally
That's
to
right.
improve safety, so those raised crossings as opposed to the level crossings across the, as I understand it, across the broader region, not just Southern Downs, is a priority of DTMR
Yes.
on safety. So it's not necessarily the seal itself, it's adding those Wombat crossings and at the same time doing the seal.
So in terms of looking to the future where we might get this list, as Councillor Wendell said in her question, of what's coming up so we can actually budget for it, do we have any kind of say in whether we agree that those are priority
Well, our say is
things?
that we wouldn't pay anything if we didn't want to do this in conjunction. That's
Yeah.
our control.
That's all we've got.
Well,
Okay.
they can do
No,
whatever they want.
that's fine.
I mean,
That answers my
you know,
question.
we do not, although you might have a better working relationship with DTMR in terms of, input,
Yeah.
but
I think through you, Madam Mayor, and I appreciate the questions, they're really good. I think the one thing we do want is a better relationship with DTMR, and I'm meeting the District Director at the Toowoomba office shortly, and we'll be talking about those asset management reflection in their program. So I'd also like to see that the money they spend from their network reflects also the asset management issue as well. So asset management is not just about condition of pavement, it's also about serviceability, safety and all of those other things, which I think the Mayor has spoken very well about today. But we want to get better connected with our programs, because I don't want to put up late budget items, but if we don't, then I think we'd be criticised. So we want to get a much better planned and interfaced program, and that's our objective. And also from our perspective, we want to make sure that we're asset led in terms of all of our projects we put up as well.
Madam Mayor, I won't be supporting this motion. I thank TMR for doing the crossings. I would be interested to know whether or not council has given approval for TMR to do the crossings on our roads. But like Councillor Harslett, I've driven along that road. I don't see any issue with the surface of the existing road. I can't see any issue other than one pothole that should be fixed by council in the shoulders section where there's car parking. I think this would be seen by our community as a waste of money when there are plenty of other roads in our region that would be worthy of this money than this section of the road. I'm concerned that the resurfacing of what appears to be a good section of road, other than at the roundabouts where they're doing the crossings, the resurfacing of that would result in a poorer quality of road than what already exists there, because I imagine they're not going to lay asphalt over the top. They're probably going to do a spray seal of bitumen, which was going to be probably terrible. But anyway, I won't be supporting it, and I would think that we should seriously consider, if we want to spend $150,000 on roadworks, we should be looking at doing the car parking up near the hospital like we previously talked about, rather than the reseal that was done there without consultation with council. So I will not be supporting this motion.
I'll come back to you, Councillor Watling, I'll let the manager.
Just in terms of the type of work that TMR is proposing to you, Madam Mayor, the works are asphalt resurfacing, so they will reprofile the road and relay asphalt, and that will join neatly with the shoulder work that the report is proposing.
Madam Mayor, I'm pleased that's the case, because it's not what they've done in many, many other places, but I'm pleased that's what they're going to do here.
Councillor Watling.
Through you, Madam Mayor, so on the financial implications, it says to delay this project will result in further deterioration of parking lane services, which will increase maintenance costs and will exponentially increase capital cost to resurface in the future. So
Through you, Madam Mayor, so the comment in the report is if you were to mobilise to do any works in the shoulder parking areas, will cost us additional monies just to mobilise a crew, particularly traffic control and everything. TMI is already mobilising these works. We are only paying for the asphalt component of the works that they're doing. So the cost implications for us to do it by ourselves would be far greater if you were to go and do the works by ourselves just along the shoulder areas. Looking back, we haven't done any major works on the shoulders except for some maintenance repairs over the years, but which is very minute. which is very low, and it's about time that while they're there, it would be appropriate for us to do it along with them by paying only the cost of the asphalt, not the rest of the.
Madam Mayor, I'm supporting the motion sheerly on the cost-effective nature of it. I'm not an engineer or an expert in resealing, to say the least. We have resealing schedules that we have expected life of the asphalt. And if you get down sometimes and actually walk along it, you'll see cracks that you would never see from a moving vehicle. You've literally got to walk along it and you see how the pavement fails. If you, the main part they're wanting to seal along there from high school, in front of high school where they cross across to the park, that's a heavily trafficked area, particularly at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I invite councillors to go down there and sit and watch the amount of traffic movements where the buses will pull in, buses load there. It would be definitely in need of resurfacing because of the high level of traffic use there. The other area down further towards Albion Street, yeah, not so much traffic movement on that shoulder, but certainly on the high school side of Victoria Street, I think there's a big need for regular service on that because the amount of traffic that's utilised to pick kids up, do everything along there, it's very, very busy. So I can see the cost-effective nature. I'm glad someone's taken into account the safety aspect of putting those crossings in. That's the main priority, looking after the school children. I think we should congratulate Main Roads for doing that. So if we work with them, I think we're actually getting ahead out of it. It's just that it was brought on us unannounced, and that's probably caught us short.
Through you, Madam Mayor, just to build on the comment there, because I was going to say, sometimes the road there doesn't look so bad because there is not a lot of structural failures at the moment, which is really good. However, as the seal gets more older, you do get the cracking and you do get the water penetration in. So if we don't do the regular reseals, even if the actual pavement is structurally sound, we will find later we'll then get structural failures. So this is one of those things, if we'd only done the works a few years ago, we would have probably said, no, there's no need to. But we haven't done our works in our area, and nor has DTMR done the works in that reseal area. And if you do walk around it, you will see cracks emerging, and that's the reason for this intervention from DTMR, apart from the critical safety issues.
Thank you, Director. I would also like to support Councillor Bartley's statements. I think that, one, the safety, you can see even down at the Stanthorpe Wombat crossings that have recently been done by DTMR under this program, they have made a difference to the school. You can see the behaviour of drivers actually changes. And I certainly would defer to the expertise of the director and manager in running a very large capital budget and deciding on their priorities. That they have clearly determined that this would fit within their priorities, and no doubt at the Q2 budget review they'll be telling us how they're doing that, but I'm going to defer myself to their expertise on this in supporting the recommendation. Councillor Windle.
Yeah, just one more question. I think we've had some really good straightforward answers to all this, and my only question then will be, when it comes to reallocating the $150,000 to this project, will we have an opportunity to have any input into where it's going to come from, or what project will be put on hold?
Yes, if it's in the budget review, council is involved in that budget review process. So yeah, correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else, or shall we move to a vote? All in favour? That's everyone except Councillor Richters, and against? Councillor Richters. Thank you. Item 14.2, request for water connection. We have a recommendation that council approve the request for a water connection to property ID 144510, amend the approved rural water supply area to include this lot, require the payment of a water infrastructure charge for this lot, and inform the applicant of this decision. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Richters, and a seconder, Councillor Pigeon. Thank you. Is there any discussion on that one before we move to a vote? All in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, Madam Chair. Scooting in. Okay, moving on to item 14.3, naming of unnamed road. In Hendon, we have a recommendation that council name the unnamed road Allora, constructed under operational works permit OPW 000194, connecting lot 906 on plan H702 to Railway Street, Hendon. Do I have a mover? Councillor Richters, and a seconder, Councillor Pigeon. Thank you. Any discussion on that one?
Madam Mayor, I remember when this one came to our council meeting a few months ago, and I think it's fantastic that we've been able to go back and consult with the traditional custodians of the land there, and they have been able to come up with an alternative name that fits their language and fits our local cultural area, and I'm very pleased with the outcome.
Thank you. Okay, all in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Next, Unnamed Road in Rosenthal Heights, we have a recommendation that council undertakes a public consultation process with the broader community seeking public feedback on the proposed name Mulcahy and or Devon for the Unnamed Road B in Sovereign Downs Stage 2, Lot 100 SP 249599 Homestead Road, Rosenthal Heights 4370. Do I have a mover for that?
I'm happy to move Mulcahy over Devon.
I think it's
Make it a
actually
choice.
Mulcahy.
Okay.
I'm happy
It's
to
Mulcahy.
second Mulcahy and not Devon.
Not Devon.
Just to correct, the correct pronunciation is Mulcahy.
Mulcahy.
Mulcahy, it's a
Oh, I can
family
even
name
say
that's
it every
been,
day.
they've been in the region for a long time.
Point of order, Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
The motion is to go out to public consultation, not to approve names.
Yeah.
Yes, it's what names we want to go out to public consultation. So,
All right, so we
I'm happy
do,
to move the motion, the recommendation, sorry.
noting that, Madam Mayor, noting that during public consultation, people can come up with other alternative suggestions.
absolutely, the seconder was councillor McDonald and the mover was councillor Harslett, but without and or Devon in the original. Just Mulcahy. Mulcahy. That one's gonna get me for a while. So at the moment, we have an amended motion just on Mulcahy. Why don't we put that, test that?
Okay, no, I was
Madam Mayor,
saying,
can I just clarify that the public consultation period for this is 21 business days?
Under the current policy,
Yes,
John's nodding, yes.
yes,
thank you.
okay. Yes, okay, well, if, shall we go, look, I certainly would support that amended motion because I think Mulcahy has a connection to the area, whereas Devon does not. So I don't actually think Devon complies with our own policy. So I think that amendment is appropriate. We'll test that by going to a vote. All in favour? Unanimous? Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 14.5, naming of public asset, Allora, Discus Ring and Dalrymple Park Walk. We have a recommendation that council recognise the accomplishments of Matt Denny, Australian athlete and bronze medal winner of the discus throw at the Paris 2024 Olympics by naming the Allora Cricket Grounds Discus Ring after Matthew Denny and creating a walking path in Dalrymple Park featuring markers that highlight the distance of the various records achieved by Matthew Denny. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Pigeon, thank you, and a seconder, Councillor Windle. Do we have any discussion on that one? Yes, Councillor Pigeon.
Well, I'd just like to firstly congratulate the staff and everyone involved in getting this process underway. I think it's a great initiative to recognise Matt's achievements. I think both are brilliant plans and I look forward to seeing them come to fruition. I also would just like to thank the public submissions that come forward. I thought there was a very, very good point raised in that Matt's not the only Olympian in the district that we need to recognise and moving forward I think that needs to be something that we really consider in our council strategies moving forward. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I also think it's fantastic that we're doing this and it's a great acknowledgement of what Matt has been able to achieve. Like Councillor Pigeon, I also agree that there are some other people that particularly the ones that came out during the feedback, such as Harriet Hudson. I think that perhaps maybe there's scope for us in the future to get some funding to install a pontoon on the Condamine River at Federation Park and name that the Harriet Hudson pontoon. I think that would be very fitting. So I think it's very notable that we should look at other opportunities to celebrate the successes of Olympians, but I also think it's important that we also celebrate the success of females. That our town has many, many monuments, and all of them are to males. I think it would be important for us to start thinking about how we can recognise females and females' contributions to our region.
Thank you, Councillor Ritters. Councillor Watling?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think it's a fantastic idea and a great initiative. I just would like to know, is there a cost? Have we got a cost for this yet?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Melissa, we're thinking that no more than about 3.5 grand.
Yeah.
We're trying to keep it very low,
Okay.
but still achieves a good outcome.
Oh, no, thank you.
Okay, sure.
And maybe we should watch this space because there's another young shot put. What is he? He's a school age young fellow in the region, comes from that region as well, Willowdale, and we may have to put some more markings there in the future with shot put because he's a world champion at the moment. So he's 17th, 14th in the world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just one other comment I wanted to make, in case people weren't aware that Dalrymple Park is where the local school children run their cross country. It's also the golfing course down there, so there's a lot of sport that happens in that area. So young students are inspired by, seeing those distances with a visual there will, help their sporting careers as well, I think, which will, trigger something.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to a vote on that. All in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item 14.6, Sewage Treatment Plant Stanthorpe Design Award. We have a recommendation that Council, in accordance with Section 224 of the Local Government Regulation 2021, enter into a contract with RF Australia Pty Ltd for the sewage treatment plant Stanthorpe design and delegate authority to the Chief Executive Officer to enter into any variations to the contract terms as deemed necessary for the duration of the contract. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Harslett, and a seconder, Councillor Dean. Thank you. I'll open that up for discussion.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to thank the staff for taking the time to consider other tender opportunities for this contract. I think that it does demonstrate that there are some other good players within the market, and that means that we are assured that we're getting the best possible outcome.
Yeah, I would like to actually ask either the manager or director. In the financial implications, we have an anticipated cost of $913,000, but the tender price is just over $1 million. It says there's sufficient budget to award this tender. Could you just clarify that, given that it's slightly over your expected total project cost in there? Is the budget higher than that budget amount?
The tender ranking price is inclusive of GST, and the cost implications is without GST, and that's the figure that we pay, and that is within our budget.
Thank you, Manager. That's a very good clarification on that.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, further to your question, what was the anticipated budget? Or what was the original allocated budget?
It's 913, and then you add the 90 GST on page 168, financial implications.
We've got 850 for this financial year, we've got 200,000 for next financial year, which is the tender documents, and this is for both of them. And this project will continue into next financial year.
Correct.
$1,050,000.
So through you, Madam Mayor, there's a small contingency because it's a multiple project, and so our recommendations within budget, considering that the work will cross over into next year as well.
Yeah. I would also like to echo Councillor Richter's statements. I think it's good that we were able to go out for an expression of interest on this to ensure that we had some comparative quotes and submissions, and I think that is good that our focus on procurement and requiring more than one tenderer is being followed through on, particularly on these large contracts. Any other questions or comments? Go to a
Sorry, through you, Madam Mayor, just building on what you've said, Mayor, I think it's also important that the staff have really appreciated because Stantec did the original concepts and now they weren't successful in terms of our weighted scoring, as you can see. And so it does get a fresh set of eyes on the actual concept as well. So there's other engineering benefits with it as well, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, all in favour? Unanimous, thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move that the meeting adjourn.
We were going to adjourn at 10:45.
Could I, well, I would like to adjourn prior to going into planning matters.
Yes, we can probably do that, can't we, Marion? Yes, okay, that's moved. All in favour? Unanimous, adjourned at Thank you, and we reconvene at 10:46 a.m. And going to our planning reports, item 15.1 in relation to 161 Palmerin Street, Warwick. We have a recommendation that the application for material change of use for the purposes of hotel, redevelopment of existing hotel, short-term accommodation 6 units, and shop on land at 161 Palmerin Street, Warwick, described as Lot 1 RP 5847 be approved subject to conditions following an infrastructure agreement voluntarily being entered into by the developer for the payment of car parking contributions per car parking space not provided on site for the shortfall of 6 car parking spaces prior to council deciding the development application. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Richters, thank you, and a seconder, Councillor Pigeon, thank you. Do we have any
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move an amendment to the motion that we reduce the number of car parks to 4 for the plain reason that the development is located within the southern end of Palmerin Street business area and there is adequate and convenient nearby parking that is safe to use in accordance with the overall outcome in accordance with 9.4.2.2 item 2A.
does Councillor Richters have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Pigeon. Thank you. Opening up for discussion. Can I ask, given there is an amendment, the recommendation says that the developer is voluntarily entering into this agreement for 6 car parks. Is that the case?
Through you, Melissa, how it works is that there's an infrastructure agreement that has to be voluntarily entered into, and if they don't voluntarily enter into that, then we need to make amendments to the approved plans to ensure that a car park is provided that is aligned with the proposed floor area that's proposed by the developer. So it's termed a voluntary infrastructure agreement because we can't force them to, but if they don't enter into it, other arrangements need to be made in relation to the development application.
Councillor McDonald.
Madam Mayor, may I holistically compliment the developer? From what I'm seeing on page 181 to 182 with the concepts there, it's fantastic to see this site being revitalised and creating additional accommodation within the area. So I would like to, I'd be happy to proceed with the motion. If they've accepted the 6, I'm quite happy to proceed.
I would just like to also congratulate the developer. I think, like Councillor McDonald said, it's a brilliant concept for the area, and I think it's great growth for the area, and I just want to congratulate them on their foresight with this application.
Thank you, Councillor Pigeon. I also think that this is a fantastic development for our area. I'd like to, say that I think this is, something that will really benefit the entire CBD. I will be voting against the amendment motion because, in my view, this is a great development. 6 car parks is not a lot to ask when they can't provide enough car parking on their own, and I really don't see the difference between going from 6 to 4. Councillor Harslett.
Thanks, Mayor. I support that. I can't see any reason for changing it to 4. I would stick with 6, and also because this is going to add a lot to that southern end of Palmerin Street, in my opinion. I think it's a great development, and that hopefully will increase more activity down that end of Palmerin Street. So the car parks are going to be needed in the future for this and other, hopefully, future developments, I think. So I would be voting against the 4. I think it needs to stay at 6.
Shall we go to a vote on the amendment?
Madam Mayor, just to point out, you're inconsistent in your language. The manager of planning has identified that it's a voluntary agreement, but the developer has not agreed to 6. The developer requested the council consider 4. Just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, that was my question at the beginning, but I actually think that the requirement for 6, I think we as a council have quite a challenge in both the Warwick and Stanthorpe CBDs in providing sufficient car parking. If you look at the state, for example, of the Acacia Street car park, it is direly in need of investment and work. Stanthorpe parking is an issue. We as a council have to find ways to fund those car parks that we provide for businesses, and I think our planning scheme does that by making a requirement to provide certain ones or contribute to them. I also think this is a fantastic deal for developers because when we do it with a contribution, they don't have the ongoing maintenance costs that they would have if they did those car parks themselves. So I think, you know, for a small cost, they're actually getting quite a good deal from council, and I think that's the basis on which I would maintain the 6 car parks. Councillor
Thank you,
Bartley.
Madam Mayor. Question to the planner. Can they still come back through the negotiating decision process on that?
For you, Mayor Melissa, in terms of the infrastructure agreement, I guess once it's signed, it is executed. So if they are wanting to negotiate, I guess we're not proceeding to a decision without that infrastructure agreement in place first. And as has been indicated, if they don't want to enter into that agreement, we would modify conditions or plans to ensure that car parking is provided on site. So there would be a negotiation period, but I don't know the sequencing as to how that may occur, depending on how the applicant proceeds with this one.
Because I think they have the rights, the same as any other developer, to do that. And that's why I'm asking. I think they can. We could approve it in its own right as it is now, and they can come back and negotiate. And it's still up to council to make those decisions.
Through you,
And with recommendation of the planning staff.
Yeah, through you, Madam Melissa, there's opportunities definitely for change representations and the like to still be forthcoming, but what would happen in this instance is the timing is such that the voluntary infrastructure agreement must be entered into and executed prior to council approving the approving the development, sorry. So therefore, if they want to look at that condition, there's probably other processes that need to go and would need to come back to council for a subsequent decision of any change to that aspect.
So, Madam Mayor, I'm happy to move in line if the amendment doesn't get up. If Councillor Richter's still happy to move in its entirety, I'm happy to support. But not with the amendment.
Yeah, let's go for a vote on the amendment motion, which is for 4 car parks. All in favour? Councillor Richters and Pigeon, and those against? Everyone except Richters and Pigeon. Thank you. So that amendment motion has failed. If we go back to the original motion, do I have a mover for that?
Madam Mayor, I've already moved the motion.
Oh, moved,
Happy
yes,
second,
and
Madam
Councillor Bartley
I
was
believe
second.
Councillor Pigeon seconded
Oh,
it.
yep, okay. And if we go for a vote on the original recommended wording, all in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item 15.2 in relation to also another one in Palmerin Street.
Mayor, I'll be leading this one.
Thank you, Councillor Wendell. You've got that? Okay. We have a recommendation that the application for material change of use for the purpose of showroom and low impact industry in 3 single-storey non-residential buildings and reconfiguring a lot on land at 26 Palmerin Street, 31 Albion Street and Albert Street, Warwick, described as lots 1, 2, 3 and 4, RP 5755, lot 1 and 2, RP 5756, lot 1, RP 5751, lot 2, RP 51389, lots 1 and 2, RP 57839, lot 2, RP 102587 and lot 1, RP 44563 be approved subject to conditions following an infrastructure agreement voluntarily being entered into by the developer for the payment of car parking contributions per car parking space not provided on site with a shortfall of 24 car parking spaces prior to council deciding the development application. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Richters and a seconder, Councillor Dean. Thank you. Do we have any further discussion on that one, Councillor Bartley?
Just a question, Madam Mayor. Have the planners taken into account, we still have a residence adjoining that, and that is RP 74473. That's actually a house there on that lot, and they are duly protected under the conditions of this development.
Through you, Mayor Melissa, yes, the use of the adjoining properties would have been considered as part of the assessment, including the residential use of the adjoining property.
I know it's the only house there, but it's a house.
Any other, Councillor McDonald?
Once again, Madam Mayor, great to see development. It's obviously the opposite end of Palmerin Street. Fantastic that we're actually seeing our business community thriving and going ahead. So I'm seeing a lot of progress in the region. I think this can only be good. It's a very, very positive sign.
Yes, I'll be interested to see further details on this application. I think given its location with the historic area of the CBD and Leslie Park, I think it would be very nice to see something sympathetic, but I'm not entirely sure that's what we're going to see, unfortunately. But what we have in front of us today is an infrastructure agreement. Any other comments or questions on that one? Okay, we'll go to a vote on that. All in favour?
Madam Mayor, just before we do that, just you said this is an infrastructure agreement. It's not what we're approving here today. We're approving the material change of use, including the infrastructure agreement.
Yes, sorry, including the infrastructure agreement, yes. So the motion, yes, all in favour? That's everyone present, thank you. Can someone let Councillor Windle know?
I think she's out for the next one.
No, she's staying in the room for 15.3. She's. Yes. That should. No, I think we're on track actually for the Albion one, so I think we should be able to get this largely done and then stay in order. Okay. Okay, item 15.3, the Condamine Sports Club. We have a recommendation that council maintain the executed infrastructure agreement between Southern Downs Regional Council and the Condamine Sport Club Incorporated. Do I have a mover for that? I'll move it for Councillor Harslett. And a seconder? Councillor Pigeon, thank you. Okay, opening that one up for discussion. Councillor McDonald.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the CEO, can you just clarify if this is a not-for-profit organisation?
I don't know that off the top of my head. I know they provide grants to local community and sporting groups, but I don't know if they are an NFP.
They are. CEO. Madam Mayor, I won't be supporting this motion, and if this motion fails, I intend to move an alternate motion.
Could I just ask a question, probably through you, Madam Mayor, probably of Govinda? Do they, as an NFP, receive any other discounts or concessions through council in any other way, with rates or anything else?
I think they've got a gaming machine.
Okay, so that makes that a void. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I will be supporting this motion. I think absolutely I recognise that the Condamine Sports Club provides through its gaming machines grants to community groups. However, I think asking council to waive our fees, which are necessary for us to pay for infrastructure for the community so that they can give grants out to other groups, to me, is an incorrect argument. If there is a payment due to council, and this is a substantial development, I would be more open to this if this was a small development and they were scraping the money together. This is a substantial extension that they're doing. It will lead to them making more money. And I think that heading down the track of saying we will put on the ratepayers the costs that this group don't pay when they clearly have enough money to do their development, I don't agree with that approach. I think if you're going to head down the path of doing a substantial development, this is a small amount of money in the scheme of the development, and it is absolutely necessary given that we do not have enough money to fund our own infrastructure. So I will be supporting the motion.
Madam Mayor, are we in formal debate, given you've given your side? Yeah. Okay, Madam Mayor, I won't be supporting the recommendation. I believe they are a not-for-profit group and they run a unique business. If you know the history of the area, they've taken 2 shop premises into their organisation. There was a cafe, fish and chip shop and a fruit shop. Bear me out on that, Councillor Windle. They all obviously would have had to have car parks and probably a lot more intensive traffic caused by that type of activity. The Condamine Club basically offer a courtesy bus for their clients, and I believe they're embarking on a second one. Most of the people that go there either get dropped by people or taxis for obvious reasons. They're complying with the law. So in actual fact, they probably don't use many car parks at all. I understand the strategy behind the idea of collecting infrastructure charges for car parks. They're actually to maintain our existing car parks and keep them in good order. Because if they were to pay for new car parks, I think they'd end up at the top of Lock Street somewhere because there's no more available. There literally are no more car parks to be bought. You're only contributing to maintaining public car parks. I believe all those businesses contribute in their rates as we stand. So I see this slightly differently to other commercial premises, given that what they do for the community. I'm not going to support the recommendation. I believe there's another way forward for this.
Councillor McDonald, did you have your hand up? No. Councillor Watling.
After reading the Warwick Sports Club's submission, firstly being a non-for-profit organisation that has over the last 7 years contributed over $1.7 million directly back into schools, charities and sporting organisations. I agree the funds for the organisations could somewhat diminish if a large fee is placed upon them. Also the economic value and return investment this organisation brings to the area in the way of supporting so many sporting events. I would be in favour or carry out an addendum and reduce the contribution.
I actually support your comments on it. While I'm not trying for a single moment to take away the contribution of the Condamine Club to the community, us reducing fees for them so that they can contribute more to community it seems like a roundabout circular way of doing the same thing. I mean, we can contribute to community too by adding extra car parks through this funding that comes in. That's part of supporting our community as well. So yes, I will be supporting the motion as is.
Madam Mayor, question to the Director of Planning. Infrastructure agreement fees or monies collected via an infrastructure agreement, they are required to be set aside and used specifically for the purpose in which they're collected.
Through you, Melissa. So in the term, they have a separate rating code in terms of from the fees and charges when we collect the money associated with this type of infrastructure agreement. We haven't had any paid in recent times because we haven't had any major developments in the CBD that have required the implementation of this policy or have been enacted that have resulted in actual payment. But it would be then carried through to the infrastructure services team in terms of that money that's being collected for car parking upgrades within the region.
So it is designated solely for the purposes of creating more car parks. It can't be used for maintaining existing car parks or doing other infrastructure improvements.
Remember, so it may be improving existing car parks or resealing existing car parks if there's upgrades that are required, but it is for car parking purposes in the region.
So if it's used for resealing of car parks and we're taking an infrastructure charge based on a number of car parks, how is that increasing the overall number of car parks available to the community?
Through you, Melissa, that's a great question. It could be that the car parking spaces may not be currently available because of the disrepair, or it could be used to increase the car parking. So it's not hard and fast on exactly the rebuilding of new car parking. If there's if there's car parking that needs to be improved through current pavement, then it could be used for that as well.
Okay, shall we go to a vote on the original motion? Those in favour? Councillors Hamilton and Harslett. Those against? Everyone other than Hamilton and Harslett.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move that Council amend the executed infrastructure agreement between Southern Downs Regional Council and the Condamine Sports Club Incorporated to reduce the number of required car parks to 7 for the following reason: the development is located in a place where there is adequate and convenient nearby parking that are safe to use in accordance with the overall outcome of 9.4.2.22A.
Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Dean, thank you. Comments or discussion? Shall I say I disagree with your reasoning there, Councillor Richters, because if you go down the line of your reasoning of saying that there is adequate car parking, that applies to every single development application that comes before us. If we're saying it's adequate at the moment, then every single person who comes after will use that reason to suggest to us, and we will be having to decide every single car parking agreement that is coming through planning. Councillor McDonald?
Madam Mayor, I think that there's a rather large difference with this application, and that is that it is not for profit group.
That's not the reason that's been given for the amendment. And I don't believe that that is a reason that we can use for this. I don't believe that's a planning reason, unfortunately. So if we were deciding based on that, it might be a different decision. We're basing it on planning reasons, and they are reasons that will be available to all developers and all planners to bring before us going forward.
Madam Mayor, I'd just like to point out that in accordance with the Planning Act, there is no precedence in planning matters, and each planning matter is considered on its own merits.
Absolutely, we're not bound to follow the decision we make today, but it doesn't mean that people will not try that once you have done it for one applicant.
So, through you, Madam Mayor, can we review the planning scheme policy? Is it SC 63? And review that for non-for-profits then? Is there a way? Lay it on the table, can we do it?
Madam Mayor, we could do that, but we would need to do that during submissions to the public consultation on the new planning scheme.
Yeah, we can add it. I think planning are keeping a list of issues. That's certainly one, Councillor Watling, that we can add for consideration when the scheme comes back. Okay, does anyone else want to add anything, or would you prefer to go to a vote at this point? Yes, Councillor Bartlett.
Just add in, Madam Mayor, it looks like you can never build any of the contingency plans as quick as this. And this being not-for-profit is pretty unique. You're not going to get a lot of those down the main street or in our CBD area where we need car parks. In some ways I agree with your sentiments, but in other ways I understand the history that we've consumed 3 businesses and their car parks would have been existing. And historically we never made businesses pay for car parks. It was just a given that council would supply car parks to provide economic growth in their community. So this is unique in some respects. It's a shame we can't enshrine that in the reason. It's not a reason to add in not-for-profit, but in all essence that is what is influencing the councils here today.
Just a comment on that though, we've just previously been talking about a very similar business just up the road, and we've said that they need to comply, we're asking them to comply with the recommendation. I understand that they're not a not-for-profit, but there is absolutely nothing to stop that business just up the road contributing to community as a sponsor, right? So where does the line get drawn in terms of who we consider giving certain leniency to and not, just because of the NFP status?
And the NFP status does tend to reflect that people who run gaming machines and therefore make substantial money out of those machines don't tend to get concessions from council.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I suppose the purpose of this organisation is to mainly give back money into the community. Isn't that their structure? Is it?
To provide infrastructure for community too, which would
involve paying the council. But I think that's where we have the differences around the table. That's good to have differences of opinions. So we will go to a vote on the amended the motion put forward by Councillor Richters. All in favour? That's everyone except Bartley, Harslett and Hamilton, and those against? Bartley, Harslett and Hamilton. Thank you.
Mayor, the reason I was against it, I'd like to pay.
What was that? Sorry.
Ross didn't want a reduced charge, he wanted a zero charge.
Oh.
So. Okay, I think we now move on to item 15.4, material change of use in relation to a proposed kennel at Dalveen. I think we'll have a presentation before we move on. Yes, yeah. So if we can, we have some deputations for this application, so we will hear from them before we proceed to move and debate the motion.
Mayor.
Just waiting for this other door to open. Thank you. Okay. We have Alexandra and Belinda. Hello. I will ask the submitters, Alexandra and Belinda, to address us first. We have a 5-minute limit on you and on the opposers, the submitters. So
Madam Mayor, could I request that we do them in the reverse order?
submitters. Oh, the submitters first. Yes, sorry. Okay, so we will have a 5-minute session for the submitters rather than the applicants. Who are we going to have speaking to us? Do we have a nominee, or is it going to be a group?
Yeah, I mean,
You can sit, stand, whatever you want to do.
Did everyone get a chance to look at the document that came through, otherwise I have got
Yep. Yes, I have. Yeah.
Good morning, councillors, mayor and members of the planning department. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. We represent a group of neighbouring residents who have submitted objections to the proposed development application at 214 Kerrick Road. As outlined in the document we have provided in advance, we strongly believe this application conflicts with the strategic framework of the planning scheme and does not justify the significant impacts it will have on the local community. The proposed use is incompatible with the rural nature of the area and presents clear risks to the quality of life for the majority of the constituents, as evident by the overwhelming opposition received. We respectfully urge you to reject this application outright. However, if the application is approved, we ask that the conditions of approval include the amendments outlined in the document previously provided. Our key concerns: 1. Noise impact. The noise generated by up to 28 dogs will have a devastating impact on residents, the majority of whom either work from home or are retired. Unlike urban areas, there are no dense structures to buffer the noise here, and the existing vegetation provides minimal sound attenuation. Council's own assessment acknowledges that the proposed thermal break 7 material is inadequate for noise mitigation. Proper soundproofing materials such as brick, concrete or masonry must be required for all kennels and outdoor runs. Additionally, a densely planted landscaping buffer are necessary to minimise noise and visual impacts. 2. Environmental risk and waste management. The site is located entirely within the Connolly Dam water resource catchment overlay. The current proposal relies on a manure pit, which is an inadequate long-term solution for managing the volume of waste this development will generate. Without a more suitable waste management system, the risk of contamination to this vital water resource is significant. We request that a condition be imposed requiring a mechanical waste treatment plant, along with periodic independent environmental audits to ensure compliance with Council's regulation. 3. Compatibility with rural character. The rural amenity values by residents, peace, quiet and open space, will be permanently disrupted by this facility. One of the applicants has already operated a rescue facility on this property, housing at least 8 dogs at a time. While we have refrained from lodging formal complaints to maintain neighbourly relations, the noise has often been unbearable. The current property boundary fencing is inadequate and only strand barbed wire, as evidenced by previous dog escapes onto neighbouring properties. Expanding this operation threefold will only compound these issues, which is why soundproofing the dog kennels and outdoor runs, fencing the property boundary with secure dog mesh, landscape buffering and enhancing landscaping along the northern boundaries are essential. These measures will help protect neighbouring livestock and residents. 4. Road safety and condition concerns. Kerrick Road is an unsealed, single-lane road that is in poor condition most of the time, with ruts, corrugations and limited visibility on corners and hills. Increased traffic from the development will intensify these safety hazards for the local residents who rely on this road daily. We ask the Council consider the burden this will place on existing residents and require upgrades or contributions to address road maintenance and safety. Councillors, this application poses clear and significant risks to the local community, environment and infrastructure. It conflicts with the strategic framework of the planning scheme, provides no economic benefit and does not address a pressing need of the local community. We urge you to prioritise the well-being of your constituents and reject this application outright. Should you decide to approve it, we ask that the conditions outlined in the document link previously provided particularly those relating to noise mitigation, waste management, fencing and landscaping be implemented in full. These amendments are essential to minimise the impacts on local residents. Thank you for your time in considering the concerns of the community.
Thank you very much. We will now hear from the applicants.
Multitask. My name is Belinda. I'm one half of 214 Kerrick Road. This is, I guess, I've covered off a lot of this in my submission responses. But noise, our town planner has done some further, investigation into the thermal break 7 product. It does actually reduce noise by up to 12 decibels. But based on the conditions that the council has actually already imposed or will potentially impose, we will be working with our builder to make sure that all the materials that the purpose-built facility is built out of will reduce the sound in line with what the conditions have already been indicated. Traffic, in regards to traffic, our town planner has also indicated, based on his experience, that it would potentially be more unsafe to seal the road, and it would be beneficial to make sure that we impose appropriate speed limits and notify anyone that's utilising the road that there is wildlife specifically that needs to be protected, and we need to operate with care when we utilise that road. Waste management, we've actually sourced information and advice from a local septic provider, and they've indicated that it would be best for us to be putting the hard waste or the solid waste into the system. So we would need to make sure that we can actually access that system and put the hard waste in, so it wouldn't have any environmental impact, because we also agree that a manure pit potentially isn't the best course of action for our particular facility. But all other waste management will have a septic with appropriate grey water, and I know I personally don't go around and follow my sheep around and pick up their food, so they fertilise the grass appropriately, but our purpose-built facility would have less impact than livestock purposes on our property. Subdivision of lots, so our property previously was a subdivision, and it doesn't really allow for one particular agricultural enterprise to make a income, particularly for 2 people. We would like to make sure that we can stay in the area for the long term, and we obviously have a growing family that we would like to bring up in the area, and that's something that we need to make sure it's viable. So we would need to make sure that we can have multiple income streams, and the dog water facility would just be one of them. We've also increased our fencing infrastructure already. We're still, it's an ongoing process, as you can understand, it's quite expensive, but we are committed to making sure that our fencing is very, very secure, and is going to have hot wires, so electric fencing, to make sure that we keep wild dogs out and any dogs on our property where they need to be. We've also integrated livestock guardian dogs onto our property, and we have reduced the wild dog sightings on our property to nearly 0. Yes, there is some level of barking on our property, but we're in the process of training them to make sure that they're only barking when they need to. So we've got barking collars and other barking devices that we're working with them to make sure that it's not going to cause an impact on the rest of the neighbours. There has been some instances where livestock has actually sought protection from our livestock guardian dogs. I have a couple of instances, but there was actually cows that came along our fence line, and they came nightly prior to them being, removed from the property, and they specifically came for our livestock guardians to protect them. This was before that we were aware that one had been unfortunately lost to a wild dog attack, and our dogs, there have been 3 that have escaped, and we are very, we don't take that lightly. but we have implemented electric fences to make sure that that doesn't happen ever again. We've also spoken to local vets within the area and members of the public, and they have advised that there is a need for this particular facility, and there is one closer to Stanthorpe that isn't taking on new bookings, so there is a bit of a shortage within the area, and we have had that noted multiple times from different vets. We're also happy with the conditions that council has currently presented. We're happy to work with our town planner and make sure that this is viable and isn't going to have a negative impact on anyone. And I'd just like to finish up, we're a family who'd like to stay within their area, and this is something we'd really like to. Thank you.
Thank you, Belinda. Okay, I'd like to thank the submitters and the applicants. Do I have a mover for the motion?
I'll move the motion, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Richters and a seconder. Councillor Harslett, thank you. We will now open it up for debate and discussion. Would you like to start?
Yeah, Madam Mayor,
Councillor
I will be moving some amendments to this motion, but before I do so, I'd just like to firstly thank both sides of the application for coming along. I think it's great that people take the time out to actually come and speak to us about their applications or their concerns with applications. It's great to hear from you guys directly about those. I have thought about this particular application in great length, as I'm sure all of us have over the last week or nearly a week. I have read the proposed changes that come from the submitters that came to us yesterday, and some of those I have agreed with, and I would like to move some amendments that would implement some of those changes, but albeit with slightly different wording. And so I'm happy to wait until everyone else has had an opportunity to speak before I move that amendment though, Madam Mayor.
Councillor McDonald?
Madam Mayor, the applicant spoke in regards to escapes. Apparently 3 of the dogs had escaped. As a farmer, I have great concerns when I hear of things like this, dogs escaping and then on the loose in an agricultural area. The impact of that can be disastrous when it comes to stock, and that could be sheep, that could be calves, it could be a number of things. So to the Director, have we received any complaints from neighbouring properties in regards to stock being attacked, mauled, or any casualties?
Through Melissa, there is addresses that report to council, in relation to wild dog attacks. I believe, and I'm happy to pass to the coordinator as well, because we both investigate this together.
But that's wild dogs, sorry.
Yeah, so we only have the instance of wild dog. There was no reported wild dog attacks, but I don't believe that we've had anything further that's been reported to our local list.
Okay, thank you. Just moving forward in regards to our planning scheme, this is these applications are highly controversial. I've sat here for 5 years now on council. This subject in particular is one that is very emotive within the community. Have we looked as a council at addressing, as we do with other intensive industries, buffer zones in regards to dogs in the new planning scheme? Because every time that I'm confronted with one of these applications, I see exactly this, the emotion that's involved in both sides, from the applicants and those that are surrounding and are receptors. So have we actually addressed this for future applications in the new planning scheme? A buffer zone?
Yeah, through you, Melissa, my understanding is the current planning scheme, the new draft planning scheme has not changed in relation to provisions in relation to intensive animal keeping, such as dog kennels and breed kennels.
I'd like to flag that, Madam Mayor, that is actually looked at for the future, please. My next question to the Director is, at what point, if this was to be passed, will the applicants be allowed to start having 28 dogs on site? Is it an immediate thing, or is it not until the facility is in place and approved?
So through you, Ma'am Melissa, if the application was approved today, there is an applicant's appeal period that is underway, so that's where they can request change, they can lodge change representations to any of the conditions. Subsequent to a decision notice on that being issued, then the submitters have an submitters appeal period where they can lodge an appeal with the Planning and Environment Court, and until that period of time is also passed and an approval is actually not in effect. And then, once the use commences, all conditions that are outlined to be complied with at that point in time need to be complied with at the time the use commences.
And Madam Director, how do we actually enforce that as a council to ensure that it actually does happen, as opposed to write it down on a piece of paper saying you need to comply with X, Y and Z? How do we enforce that as a council to ensure that the neighbouring properties aren't impacted in the way in which we've asked them not to be impacted? i.e., are there fines imposed? Are we, what monitoring steps are we taking? Are we waiting until somebody does a site inspection and ensures that that actual facility is up to spec with what has been requested by council planning staff?
Yeah, through you, Ma'am Melissa, the usual process is our compliance is complaint driven. However, we can take proactive action in certain circumstances where we need to. So we do have a compliance team that could actively check compliance with conditions once the use commences.
I'm not comfortable with reactive as a councillor. How many times have I seen applications go through and then people don't comply with the conditions that are set down? I think it is very, very
McDonald, I don't think that's relevant to this application. I think that's something we probably need to take up with the CEO as regards to staffing levels and the approach.
This is highly emotive, Madam Mayor, between the applicant and also the people that live in this area. So we need to ensure as a council that is extremely tidy, and if it does go ahead, that is implemented 100% correct, so that then there's no recourse or concern in regards to the manner in which the council has acted.
So through you, members, as I just said, our usual process is that it's reactive, but in certain circumstances we can take proactive approaches. So we can identify this as one that we take proactive approaches through the compliance team.
Thank you.
Take that on.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Within your current staffing levels.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Bartley?
Madam Mayor, I'd be very interested in hearing Councillor Richter's amendments because submitters said they could probably live with this if we condition it appropriately. And from what I've seen conditioned on most dog kennels, I think it'd be easier to set up a feedlot in some situations. But in actual fact, the dog kennels are very emotive, and I'd cite the fact that we did approve one in the last council and it was taken to planning court and the applicant lost against council's decision. So that's something to bear in mind, and I understand there's no such thing as precedent in planning, but I think planning courts are generally consistent with what they do. The conditioning that we do place upon people setting up dog kennels is quite horrendous and very expensive. So it's not something taken lightly. If you look at it, you'd have to be really committed to want to do this. So we put those conditions in so to ensure the amenity of the current area is maintained and they are not a nuisance to the existing residents because they're being imposed upon you, existing residents. That's why we ensure, as planners do, to make sure it fits and doesn't cause any unnecessary disharmony within the community. So we've got to make a decision based on our planning decisions. But in saying that, I'd really like, before I can make a decision, I want to hear Councillor Richter's amendments to the conditions proposed and whether they would suit both the applicant and the submitters.
Can I please just clarify that I don't want you to think that we can live with it. We don't want it to go ahead, but if it is going to go ahead regardless, then we want to make sure that we're taking care of it as much as possible.
Thank you for that. Actually, we don't actually, Councillor Bartley wasn't actually addressing a question to you. We've had the address from the submitters and the applicants, so we don't actually do a dialogue at this point in the discussion. But I think should there be conditions imposed, the manager planning has outlined the fact that the applicant then gets to respond to those first before it then goes out for submissions again. I'd like to, perhaps before Councillor Richters raises those amendments, talk about my concerns with the application so that Councillor Richters is aware of this when he's proposing his amendments. For me, it is clear from the complaints already received from council, and that's on a much smaller number of dogs, that there is a noise issue. I think that's unarguable. And I think for me, the big problem is the 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. outside period. At the moment, the noise mitigation is largely around the kennels, which is for nighttime. But I'm not seeing, I believe that there is a noise issue in the daytime. I don't see in this application how that noise issue is being minimised. So as you say, Councillor Bartley, full soundproofing of runs in terms of solid walls, etc. In this application, I'm not seeing minimisation of the noise impact, and from my point of view, in that way, it doesn't comply with the performance outcome 6 at the moment. So my concerns are principally around noise. Councillor Pigeon.
Sorry, just quickly.
No.
I have one major concern, and it is the escape of the 3 dogs so far. I just want to ask the question to the planner, has exclusion fencing been looked at in this application as well as part of the condition? I'm not sure.
Through you, Mayor Melissa, no, exclusion fencing is not a condition that's been suggested.
Just as a property owner, I agree with Councillor McDonald that that is...
Sorry, can I just clarify, a 1.8 metre high screen fence has been what's proposed?
Yes. Yes, I understand that, yeah, I was talking about, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So effectively, yes.
Yes, yeah, thank you.
Madam Mayor, so so the amendments that I am going to propose are to condition 12 and 36. I did consider an amendment to condition 16. However, what the submitters had submitted is extensively covered in condition 19 further down, regards council's ability to enact noise monitoring and then take further action post approval of the application to force the applicant to make changes or do works in regards to noise in the event that there's future issues. I haven't proposed that we change the conditions in relation to the sewage or the screening using planting. However, I would, that just the fact that I'm not proposing that doesn't mean that I'm not opposed to those amendments being put by either myself or other people after all. So condition 12, I'd propose to change just the second sentence, and that is that the second sentence says the final design and construction of the buildings must reduce the noise extensively using attenuating materials as far as practicable. I think the wording in that particular amendment makes it much more stern in regards to what we hope to see as the outcome of using sound attenuating materials. And in condition 36, it's just changing the word parameter to perimeter, which I think is what it probably was intended to be, and then adding to the end of that to prevent the escape of animals over, under, or through the barrier fence. Just to make it absolutely clear that the barrier fence needs to be constructed in a way that will prevent any escape.
Councillor Richters, in your amendment to condition 12, does that make it clear that it covers outdoor runs as well?
No. Madam Mayor,
Because that's not a building per se.
No, and I can respond to the question, Madam Mayor, and that I think that I understand what the submitters have submitted there. I just don't think that sound attenuating material, particularly in the form that they've described, is practically feasible in this particular scenario. I think we would probably be better off pursuing a vegetative screen as opposed to trying to apply sound attenuating material to an outdoor space?
Well, with respect, Councillor Richards, you are not a noise engineer. This is one of my problems with this application that I've raised with staff, is that I think it's impossible for us to properly condition this application without the benefit of a noise impact assessment. We don't know whether the vegetation or whether higher vegetation would even provide the mitigation necessary to maintain amenity. Some of the houses are relatively close. I agree with Councillor McDonald that if you were setting up something to do with chickens or pigs, you would have to have a 1 kilometre radius for any other buildings. I think it's a slight anomaly of planning that it's different for dogs, which are actually noisier animals than livestock. But for me, I think I would not like to make a decision on the type of barrier without the benefit of a noise impact assessment that says what would be appropriate in the circumstances for that particular site.
Well, Madam Mayor, I think that you're right. A noise impact assessment would be beneficial, but I think we could have that as a condition of the application as opposed to having that information in advance.
Manager Planning, if we had a noise impact assessment, are we able to then change the conditions, or would we ask for that before we determine the conditions?
So the coordinators are free to jump in at any point in time, but effectively through your mayor, we could do either or. You could condition it and then make sure that anything that comes out of that is implemented or considered at least before the use commences, or it could be that the decision's not made until such information is provided as either option.
Personally, I think I would like to see a noise impact assessment before I made a decision. I think that the noise issue for me is the principal one with this application, and I'm not saying it can't be resolved in that the recommendations might show that it's possible, but I would be nervous about trying to draft conditions without the benefit of a report. Councillor McDonald?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move a procedural motion that the matter lay on the table until you receive such reports.
Can I just check?
Yeah, is that the right motion?
Sorry, Mayor Melissa, just checking the timeframes, whether we're moving into deemed approval or refusal territory with that motion, procedural motion. Just clarify that first. We just want to continue the debate. Can we come back to that, Councillor McDonald?
Thank you, Mr. CEO.
Madam Mayor, I think that the best course of action is to include it as a condition, noise impact assessment, because I would strongly believe that the assessment should be used as a tool to guide council officers' processing of the application. I don't think it would impact the decision though. It is my opinion that the noise impact assessment wouldn't impact the overall decision.
Madam Mayor, that's a flawed argument. Unless you put the 28 dogs there in place, how are you going to get an impact? How would you know? How could you do a test without the actual dogs in place? You can't. So you're doing it after the fact?
No, so in response to that, that's where condition 19 comes in, that we're able to do noise monitoring of the application once it's in place.
That's after the fact.
And then
what we're doing is the approval right now.
And then require changes to be made.
Yeah, I wouldn't feel.
No,
I'm not comfortable
with
that. I would want to, if I was going to approve an application, I would want to ensure that the noise, that there was no noise impact on neighbouring properties.
Mayor Melissa, have we got the time to do that though? To make that
That's what the staff are just checking, yeah.
Through you, Mayor Melissa, too. The other thing for me, we talk about the fencing. Dogs will dig to get out, so we have to ensure that that fencing is built in a way, whether it's got concrete along the edges or whatever, so that they cannot dig their way out as well. The height's fine, but we have to ensure that they can't dig their way out.
Yeah,
And Madam Deputy Mayor, that's the purpose of condition 36, the amendment I've got on condition 36 to prevent over, under, or through.
Yeah, members, sorry, I have an answer on the procedural motion. So at the moment, the period finishes on the 27th of November, unless the applicant agrees to extend that period of time. And if the applicant doesn't agree to extend that period of time, then it effectively becomes a deemed refusal. So it's obviously in the applicant's interest to extend it past that date. That would enable, if that procedural motion of Councillor McDonald is passed, that would enable council to come back and council staff to come back and address some of the issues that have been raised today, including the noise report that you mentioned.
Madam Mayor, might I also suggest that I know most of the councillors visited the site and I think it was very, very beneficial. And I invite the councillors that haven't been on site to really make an effort to go and have a look.
Yeah, during the extension period, it was very useful.
Can I just point out for Councillor Bartley's point of view that I actually attended the site on Saturday prior.
I know. But it is enlightening. It is enlightening to visit the site. Would you agree, Councillor Richter?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, well, we have a procedural motion to lay it on the table pending a noise impact assessment.
Madam Mayor, I have a question for the CEO.
Yeah.
If the matter is laid on the table and we go past the deemed approval refusal period of time, at that point in time, does the applicant have the right to take us to the Planning Environment Court?
They can lodge the deemed refusal and then take us to the planning court, and that would also then trigger the submitter's right to also join that in the court.
That's an excellent question. Do you recall at all?
As far as I know, that if it's a deemed refusal, we would have to maintain that direction, and then the applicant proves that it shouldn't be refused, so we would have to have them maintain the refusal. One would assume, I don't know if submitters come into part or not as part of that process.
Where they would likely, because it's a refusal, which is a decision that's been made, which has no appeal, like it doesn't have a change representations avenue, so all parties would be notified at that point in time.
Yeah, they still have their opportunity to be party to that in the planning court.
Correct.
But as I said, in most of these circumstances, the normal course is if council asks for an extension, it is in everybody's interest that be granted.
And Madam Mayor, just a follow-up question for the CEO. If this matter went before the Planning and Environment Court and the court approved the application, would they set the conditions of that approval, or would it come back to us?
No, effectively the court takes the place of the council as the assessment manager, and they set all the conditions, and the council has no further recourse.
And so if that was the case, we would have no recourse or ability to make any judgments on what should or shouldn't be conditioned in this case?
No, other than we'd have a compliance role to then comply, to ensure compliance with the conditions that the court set. But the court effectively sits then as the council as the assessment manager.
Okay, so we have the procedural motion to lay it on the table, pending the obtaining a noise impact assessment. Noise impact assessment, yeah. That's probably right, Marion, is that right?
Impact assessment.
Oh, impact assessment, yeah.
The applicant to provide. Is that
Pending.
the intention?
Yes, that the applicant would provide, yeah.
Right.
From the applicant.
Yeah, that should be the applicant to provide.
Okay. All in favour of that procedural motion? Councillor McDonald and Councillor Hamilton and Councillor Bartley, Windle, Watling, Pigeon and Harslett. And those against? Councillors Dean and Richters. Okay, thank you. Thank you for those who attended today. It was very instructive to hear both of you, and we will leave this with the planning team to follow up with.
I think, Madam Mayor, just for completeness for the gallery, that the end result of this will be that it will come back to another full council meeting for a decision. Whether that's December or January, I can't tell you yet, depending on whether we get the extension request from the applicant and how long it takes for them, the applicant to, if they agree to the extension, how long it takes them to get the noise attenuation report.
will that be in the agenda?
Yes, it will be in the agenda.
Yeah.
Can I just say, the dogs have been removed over the course since we've put a complaint in. So with the dogs moved, no one has been able to actually keep a diary of the dogs barking now because they've been removed. 8 dogs made a lot of noise.
Okay, thank you very much. You can contact staff with your complaint, like with that issue and with that complaint, if you contact staff through the normal methods so they can log that.
Noise in the dogs.
No, noise engineers don't require the dogs on site. So they will, it's like with festivals, they will go and they will do all their testing and give us recommendations on what level of noise would happen at different distances, in different directions, what's in between, etc. So it does not require the dogs to be on site for that noise impact assessment to happen. It's not actual noise. That's why a noise engineer does it, because they understand how noise travels and at what levels. So
we're right next door. We caught the.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to item 15.5. Councillor Pigeon is going to leave the room. And we have a recommendation.
He's merited it.
Oh,
yeah.
Joel and I have got a drip.
we've got a drip.
Oh.
Now we have a cup.
Quite a significant drip.
And it's not
That's why we're all sitting here going.
Oh yes, you do. It's got a drip on you.
I've informed facilities and in the break we're looking at it.
Okay. Item 15.5, we have a recommendation that the application for a minor change to an existing development permit for reconfiguring a lot, subdivision of one lot into 2 lots on land at 1 New England Highway, Allora, described as Lot 1A 241, including lease A and B, SP 285679, be approved in part, and condition 9 be amended as follows. A sealed road including concrete edge strip and stormwater drainage is to be constructed along the Darling Street frontages of the site. The concrete edge strip is to align with the curb and channel connecting to the New England Highway. Operational works approval will be required from council for the roadworks. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Richters, and a seconder? Councillor Harslett, thank you. Okay.
Madam Mayor, I will be moving an amendment to this as well. And unfortunately, Marion, it's not the one that I sent to you. The amendment that I'll be moving is in relation to condition number 9, and that is that we remove the words after along. So we remove the William Street and Darling Street frontages of the site and replace that with the frontage of the new lots.
Sorry, I just cannot just.
The frontages of the new lots.
This is 1 New England Highway.
Madam Mayor, pardon me. I'm on the wrong one.
I was confused. I was like, where are we going
Madam
with
Mayor,
this, Councillor?
I will be moving an amendment to this motion, and the amendment is that we remove condition number 9 for the reason that the condition is inconsistent with the character and amenity of the area in accordance with 9472(2)(b). Thank you very much, Director Plan.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that amendment motion?
Yeah, I'll stick with seconding.
Councillor Harslett will second the amendment.
Very confident.
Yes. Opening up for discussion.
Madam Mayor, I commend the family for doing what they're doing. The reason that I've moved that amendment is that area is heavily used by the Show Society during the Allora show, and the street, other than the entrances to the street off the New England Highway, the street doesn't have any further curb and channel that adjoin the bitumen, and that I think that we would be changing the character of that area, and we'd also be changing the ability of that area to be used as it is now for major community events in the Allora region.
It isn't suggesting curb and channel, Councillor Richters. You mentioned it's a concrete edge strip, which is flat. It's flat to the road, isn't it? Correct, yes.
It's curb and channel provided.
No, it says
It
a
says
sealed
it's
road
to
including
align with
concrete edge
the-
strip and stormwater drainage.
And it's in the recommendation, it says the concrete edge strip is to align with the curved channel connecting to the New England
So that's the
Highway.
existing one, yeah, so.
Just to match.
Do you have,
I still think it's inconsistent with the character, but yeah, my reasoning might not. The other part of the reasoning is not so.
I'd like to mention that this requirement has been in existence for a very long time, and simply by not complying for quite a long time, we are now in the position where we're being asked to change the requirement. I do think it's something that that should have been done a long time ago in accordance with the conditions previously applied, and I'm not sure that rewarding non-compliance is where I want to go personally, but I do acknowledge the issues around character are going to be interpreted differently for everyone. Councillor Bartlett.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I think it needs to be reflected in our new planning scheme. We reviewed the concrete beam. It's not working. It was a reasonable idea at the time, but it's not working as we've seen. Now that they've implemented it in a few places, I've gone and inspected it. It's got shortcomings. I believe there must be a better way of doing it, but in this case it's what we've got, spoon drains here, and in some cases spoon drains work very well in floodplains.
Sorry, just to, Councillor Morling, is there any input from the Director on that concrete edge strip?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, and look, I agree with the councillor's comments. I don't think they're being done correctly to date. I would like to have an opportunity to do them in a different methodology using fibre reinforced concrete, or also some reinforcing. So the councillor is correct in terms of his comments, but I think we can take that offline and look at a better engineering solution that would work with the applicant on.
Okay, Councillor Watley.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I have to agree. We seem to be dealing with the same unreasonable concrete strip that what we did a month ago. Is there any different requirements to this one here compared to the last one out on Yuki Road in any way with those concrete strips?
I mean, through you, Mayor Melissa, concrete edge strips are not used for stormwater purposes, so they are clearly to define the road.
Yeah.
And obviously ensure that the edge of the road is not further eroding. So they're not a stormwater mechanism. So I guess in terms of the Yuki Road one, again, that provision was not required for stormwater purposes along Yuki Road. It was purely from, I guess, a road function point of view.
And
yeah.
this
And I would say that when we had the Yuki Road one, that was a road in the rural zone with no other edging. This is in town. I think they're possibly, not that you might not come to the same conclusion, but I think they're slightly different scenarios. Any other comments on that one? Okay, so Councillor Richters has an amended motion that we delete this condition.
No.
Okay, so going to a vote on that amended motion. All in favour? Councillors Harslett, Richters, McDonald, Wantling, Windle and Bartley. And those against, Councillors Dean and Hamilton. Okay, thank you. Do you want to let Carla know?
So Madam Mayor, was that a vote on my amendment or a vote on the motion?
No, that was
On the amended motion.
Oh.
Yes. We're not doing it formally, Councillor Richters, we do it more informally.
Yeah. You'll still get the same result.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, there was a motion and then there was an amendment motion. There was actually two motions on the table then.
Yes, okay. I prefer that you amend your motion and you do a motion, not do amendment motions on motions. But we'll go to a vote now on the motion as amended to tick Councillor Richter's procedural boxes. All in favour? The same. All against? The same. Thank you, Councillor Richters. Next time we'll...
Madam Mayor, I enjoy your jest. However, a recommendation of council officers can't be amended before it's been moved and seconded. So whilst I appreciate you'd like to expedite things.
Yes, but we move and second it, and then the mover can amend their motion. They don't need an amendment motion, they can amend their motion.
Or you can move it as an alternate motion.
Or you can move it as an alternate motion.
Rather than the officer's recommendation.
Okay.
We
Is
can
that a
talk
question?
about this later, councillor Richters, it's procedural, let's move on, we're trying to get finished so we can hear from our audit and risk chair. Item 15.6. Yep, we were going to get Carla when councillor Richters started that. Minor change applications for Carmody Street, Warwick. We have a recommendation that the change application for a development permit reconfiguring a lot, 3 lots into 34 lots over 2 stages on land at 1125 Carmody Street and 124, 146 Cleary Street, Warwick, described as lots 54, 100 and 101 SP 339063, including EMTA, in relation to conditions 3, 18, 27 and 34 be approved in part, and change application for a development permit reconfiguring a lot, 2 lots into 37 lots over 2 stages on land at 1125 Carmody Street and 124, 146 Cleary Street, Warwick, described as lots 100 and 101 SP 339063, including EMTA, in relation to conditions 3, 17 and 32 be refused. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Richters, fantastic. And I know, seconder? Do we have a seconder?
I'll go on then, since you just keep looking at me.
As the mover of the motion, councillor Richters.
Well, I'm confused now, Madam Mayor, because you cut me off before. Now I'm not sure whether I'm meant to move an amendment or an alternate motion.
I think you can just amend your
So-
motion and the seconder can
I think
confirm
we can
that
all
they're
guess.
okay with that in a less formal
Well, Madam
procedural
Mayor,
way.
I would like to move an amendment, and that is that we include condition 27 as the in part approval, and that condition 7 be amended so that it says that with stage 2, a 2 metre wide concrete pedestrian footpath must be constructed between the United Fuel Station and the footpath linking to Cleary Street pedestrian access link in the location suitable to the Director of Infrastructure Services, and provided that in order to reasonably construct the footpath, no works are required on trunk infrastructure. For the information of councillors, you probably did see it in the report, but there is a stormwater drain that runs directly under where that footpath is proposed. Sewer.
Yes, councillor
Yeah,
Martin.
Madam Mayor, Councillor Richters is going to be totally confused regarding amendments to motions. I've just read the meeting procedure and it says where a motion is amended, the original motion cannot be reintroduced as a subsequent amendment to the first motion, first introduced motion, amendment motion. So it's very contradictory. It's almost the amended motion should be the motion because you're reintroducing the motion you amended at the beginning. So it's there for the reading and it's very, very
I think I prefer
Involved.
to go with a less formal procedure where we have discussion around the table and the motion evolves. As long as the motion and seconder are then happy with that motion, then I think we proceed on that basis.
It should always be the normal.
Yes, and it's much less complicated, as you
Absolutely.
point out,
So I
than
don't
the
think we need
formal
to
procedure.
reintroduce the original
No.
motion.
So, can I ask a question on the amendment of the Director of Infrastructure Services? What would normally happen with a footpath where you hit that infrastructure, that sewer line?
Yeah, and through you, Madam Mayor, really good question. So we need to know what the depth of that sewer is and whether we can build over it. And just through to the Acting Director of Planning, have you had that discussion?
Yes, we have through the memo, so we've followed that up and it has sufficient cover for a
Great.
footpath.
Okay, I think Councillor Richters, where you say no works are required on, I think should it perhaps say no works are required which impact on trunk infrastructure? Yeah,
Yes.
we're not just talking about Bar, we're talking about
Yeah,
the impact,
correct.
yes, okay, if you would consider that, I think.
And Madam Mayor, the reason I'm proposing that amendment is that quite clearly Cleary Street is not included in the Warwick walking plan, the new one, the current one that is actually in force. But the 70 new people, or the 70 new households that are going to live in that estate, I think it is totally not unreasonable to think that there's going to be a decent amount of traffic between those 70 houses out through this access link and to the nearest commercial business being the United Fuel Station. The United Fuel Station already has a footpath, so this footpath would link up with the existing footpath that is around the United Fuel Station.
Okay.
if the proposal goes ahead as I've proposed.
Can we just clarify no works?
Are required which impact on truck infrastructure. Do we have any other questions or issues on that motion? No? Shall we go to a vote? All in favour? It's unanimous, thank you. Item 15.7, we have Councillor Watling leaving the room for this one. We have a recommendation that the application for a minor change to an existing development permit for reconfiguring a lot subdivision of 1 into 3 lots on land at 49 Ford Street, Allora, described as lot 409A17081, be refused. Do I have a mover for that?
Madam Mayor, if this motion is not moved, I do have an alternate.
Do we have a mover for this one? No, that motion, that recommendation is not moved. Councillor Richters, would you like to move?
And this is the one, Marion, sorry, that's not the same as what was there before. So my amendment is that the application for minor change be approved. The condition is that the how do I word this? Effectively the road directly in front of the 2 lots should be sealed and remove the requirement for curb and channel or concrete edge strip.
So can you just be clear with that, Joel? What are you saying?
So that we require them to provide a sealed road across the frontage of the 2 lots, but not right to the end of the street.
So just to the end of, on Wilson Street, but just to the end of their
Just
boundary.
those 2 lots, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we remove the edging.
And what about the cement culvert?
It's out of.
Okay. I didn't.
Are you seconding Councillor Dean?
No, I had a question for the.
Let's just wait for a seconder for Councillor Richter's motion. Councillor Harslett stepping up again. Seems reasonable. Yes, Councillor Dean.
I just had a quick question with the cement. Is it throughout that lane at all at the moment?
Oh, the ceiling?
Yeah.
No, it's unsealed.
Sorry, were you talking about removing the
concrete edge strip.
concrete edge strip? Is that throughout that lane at all?
There's none.
So are you proposing for just the 2 lots, Joel,
Just
or
the 2 lots.
the whole road?
Just the 2 lots. Just across the 2 lots.
Why
I think, yeah, my concern is probably similar to Councillor Richter's in relation to dust nuisance. I was actually going to suggest a 3 metre wide concrete driveways for both of them to deal with the dust nuisance rather than sealing the road, but I think it's a similar issue. Did you have something, Councillor?
No, I didn't, Madam Mayor.
I just have something to put forward, and it's just a question. If we are looking at doing sewage in Allora down the track, is it something that we could be looking at resealing that road once that work has been done? That rather than putting in something that's there and then having to modify it down the track when we put sewage in, that it become a works thing for down the track? Considering that the lanes at the moment are not bitumened, they're dirt, and this would be the only one that is going to have 2 blocks of bitumen, when I think there is major works that need to be done in the area anyway.
Yeah, I have a big question when we go down this path. I feel that we might be ahead of putting the cart ahead of the horse, because I think that there are significant drainage problems in Allora, and I think putting in curb and channel and bitumen at the moment, which would concentrate water flow when we don't understand what we're trying to achieve, there is possibly not the best decision for council. So hence why I was thinking just doing the driveways rather than the road might be the best interim step to at least control the dust, and leave the other issues for when we develop a better plan.
My only concern, Madam Mayor, would be enforcing that they concrete the driveway might be taking their hands away from other options that they might like to undertake. As in they may wish to pave their driveway or they might wish to asphalt their
It
driveway.
could just be
or...
sealed driveways, so yes, you're right, it doesn't have to be a particular material. Councillor Dean?
If they were to seal the driveways, would it allow better access to create more infrastructure in the area down the track rather than sealing the road?
I actually don't think I actually don't think that sealing the driveways would help because they're a low speed area, and it doesn't solve the issue of cars going backwards and forwards, which would actually be the dust generating part of it. And the reason I'm only proposing that they do across the frontage of lots is because I think it's highly.
It's not. That's scrap.
I really don't think that it's our job to be making them seal a whole road and do works at the other end of it where clearly council should have been responsible for that a long time ago.
I completely agree that culvert, I believe, is a council issue. I think that's something that we need to be doing. My concern with sealing out the front of the two blocks is the drainage issue that you're going to get on either side of those two roads. I think that it should be something that is forecast for future works for the council to look after. The amount of traffic that these two lots are going to generate is next to nothing. And in the big scheme of things, I think it could be something that is put forward for the council down the track to be working towards, considering the future works that need to be done in the area.
Councillor Windle?
Thanks, and I agree with Councillor Pigeon, and also if you look at the picture here on figure 1, there doesn't appear to be anyone in that area that's got a sealed driveway. So I don't think that it's necessary to enforce that with these two blocks as well.
Councillor Bartley?
Madam Mayor, I guess question to the planner and the engineer. Where would the legal point of discharge be for stormwater off these houses or dwellings if they were built on those two lots? Because Wilson Avenue or Wilson Lane would not be, without any drainage, would not be a suitable point for legal point of discharge. And I think that's the only place you can go because your frontage is covered by another house out to the Jub Street where it is probably the other house's legal point of discharge. Because Allora was so flat, there's no drain. It just doesn't drain. They've also given so much of their property to increase the width of the lane as a requirement of the planning scheme in these events when houses or development occurs on laneways. I see that. I'm not really worried about the dust of the driveways because everyone will probably go up their driveway in low gear, as most people do. You're not in low gear when you go on your driveway. Most people go after their driveway. Most people actually seal their driveways with concrete in this day and age. But my point is how we ever get drainage in these areas anyhow is going to be quite an issue. They just don't drain.
Madam Mayor, I think based on the conversation around the table, there doesn't seem to be a lot of people expressing an opinion that sealing it is a good idea. And if that's the case, I'm happy to buggerise with Marion and go back to my original amendment, which was to remove condition 7 altogether.
Yeah, sort of, I'm getting confused because it sounds like people want to approve it. Yes. Without any condition there about the road.
Yes, I think at the moment, I also think Councillor Richter's with your initial one. I think it also, I think it complies both with performance outcome 9 and performance outcome 11. I don't think either of those performance outcomes in the case of Wilson Lane will require us to impose a condition on sealing.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move my original motion, my original amendment, which was that we remove condition 7.
It does beg the question though, through you, Madam Mayor, we often receive many requests to seal those lanes for dust issues. And that happens when it gets hot and dry in summer. All those residents in all those little unsealed lanes in Allora request seal.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I completely agree with you, Councillor Bartley, that it needs to be future works for something for us to look at in the future, but at this present time, for this particular issue, I don't think that I think that there's not only sealing of roads, but we've got sewage in Allora which we need to look at, and we need to be thinking about that, because we don't want to be doing works and then repeating and adding extra costing to things. We need to be really careful about our way of approaching both of those issues.
And I agree with that, Madam Mayor, as long as we're all on the same page when people whinge about the dust.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm just in the conversation, I've had a couple of questions, but I think there's a lot of work to be done in these laneways before we make sort of decisions. So I concur with everyone's discussion around the table. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't in the future look at sealing it, but if we did that, we'd obviously take the drainage into account, and we may do a different approach to what we would do just for 2 lots as well, both in terms of width and also form. So I'm relaxed with the conversation, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Well, we've got the amended motion from Councillor Richters. Did you want to add in performance outcome 11 as well, Councillor Richters?
You can if you want, Madam Mayor, but you only actually need one.
You don't. Yeah, that's true. Actually, I'll leave it as is. Okay. Or is that okay? It was Councillor Harslett. Yeah. Okay. All in favour?
Just checking, Madam Mayor, that
I'm fine with it. It's the first time that's been checked actually, but thank you.
I presume you'll just shout.
I'll let you know when I'm not.
Yeah, all in favour? Okay, unanimous, thank you. Can someone grab Councillor Watling? Okay, so we're moving on to agenda item 15.8. Adoption of our amended fees and charges for 24-25. We've got a recommendation to adopt the revised schedule of general fees and charges for 2024-2025. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Richters, thank you, and a seconder, Councillor Pigeon. Are we happy to move to a vote on that? Yep, all in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Item 15.9, Pest Management Advisory Committee. We have a recommendation that Council consider the nominations received from the community representatives for Council's Pest Management Advisory Committee and confirm by a resolution the name of the person to be appointed. I might hand over to Councillor Pigeon as the portfolio holder. Councillor Pigeon, do you have a suggestion?
I do.
On the basis of a resolution?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Given the good quality of the applicants that we have received submissions from, I would just like to thank them also. But to ensure representation for the North, South and traditional owners, I propose that we amend the terms of reference to allow 3 community representatives to the panel. That being Paul Maher, Liz Bourne and Kim Rush.
Thank you, Councillor Pigeon. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Windle.
And just to note too that we did get confirmation that one of the applicants withdrew this morning.
It's true, yes. Andrew O'Day withdrew his application in favour of Paul Maher. I'd like to thank Andrew for doing that and recognising that a single representative for the North was sufficient. Marion, are you okay with the wording now, or do you need any assistance?
Madam Mayor, I would just like to say that I think it's a shame that Andrew withdrew. I think he would have been a good contribution, a good contributor to the Pest Management Committee, and I hope that he will reconsider.
And I support that because of his experience that he's had with the pest management. I was quite happy when I saw his application come through, so I too was disappointed when he withdrew.
Would they be Kim Rush, Liz Bourne and Paul Maher? K-I-M, yeah, Rush. Okay, are we happy to go to a vote on that?
Can I just check, I'll just tweak it to amend the terms first to make it 3 and then appoint in that.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
I don't think we can see your wording.
It's frozen up.
Oh, it's frozen, Marion.
You probably don't want to see it. Oh, we do. Just all over the place. So I'll just change the order around so that that goes first. Because is that correct? You have to ask for 3. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So we did part,
Yes.
two-part.
Okay, all in favour of that resolution? Unanimous, thank you. We then move on to our late agenda item, item 15.10. We have a recommendation that council receive the report and approve the application for a temporary entertainment event for the Sun-Dried Events Initiation NYE Festival under Council's Local Law Number 1, Administration 2011, subject to the conditions in attachment 4. Do I have a mover for that?
Madam Mayor, I'm gonna,
And
okay, I'm happy to second that.
Councillor Richters is seconding, thank you.
Who's the first one?
Harslett. Okay, so opening up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I like the idea of bringing more people to the region to see what we have to offer. I understand that this kind of event can be a little controversial, particularly with noise and because it goes late into the evening and everything. The swaying factor for me in this report is that this event has been held in the Scenic Rim for a couple of years running, and from the reports that I've had from from Nicole and her team, there's been no complaints down there from their council around it, and no major problems with it. So I think that it seems like it's going to be one that will be well run. They will comply with what they have said they will comply with, and we should have minimal complaints based on that, I would hope.
Could I ask the manager, actually, do we know, a big question for me in this is, when it was previously held, do we know how close the neighbours were for the previous ones?
I don't know that answer, Melissa.
No, it wasn't apparent, was it? Because they could have been a lot further away than what we're talking about
We
here.
were advised they moved out here to get a bigger property, so I'll assume it wasn't a huge property it was on, but I don't have that information.
Okay, Councillor McDonald.
Madam Mayor, as a seconder, I'd like to speak next.
Sure.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, I have yesterday put this report on the Genevieve Hall Facebook group, and last night I was inundated by Facebook messages and phone calls from people who said they had no idea that this had been proposed and that they hadn't been consulted with. And some of the people who weren't consulted with were people who were identified on the plans that were submitted as being properties of close proximity. So I have some concerns about how much the community has been consulted in this, and we know from previous experience when it comes to rabbit seed lettuce, for example, how poorly things go when the community is not consulted with, particularly acknowledging that there's no requirement for it to happen. However, that doesn't negate the fact that it should still be a good course of events to happen. I think that there needs to be amendments to this application in the conditions, specifically around the closeness of properties required to be consulted with. 1 kilometre to me is not sufficient. And I also believe that there needs to be a requirement for noise monitoring to be implemented during the event at selected locations as determined by council. And I also would be in favour of a procedural motion to adjourn this item until a special council meeting next week, if possible, because I haven't had an opportunity to go through all the messages yet that I've received. And there are a lot of people who would like to have input into this, particularly people who have horses and stud horse properties nearby who are very concerned about what the impact might be for them. And yes, there might not be an impact, a great impact in the end, but the fact that they haven't even been considered or consulted with, I think needs to be addressed. And I think by adjourning this item for a week, it would give council officers an opportunity to have those conversations, and for the applicant maybe to reconsider who they've consulted with.
Sorry, can I just clarify, when you say officers to have those conversations, what do you mean
With
by
the
that?
applicant about things that I've just talked about.
You're asking staff to do the
About
consultation.
the feedback that you've got from your Facebook page.
I'm asking, I'm not
So
asking.
you don't
I'm
want to
making
do
a suggestion.
consultation, you want staff to do consultation?
But I want to know what we're consulting on.
Well, I'm happy to also do it, but I think that the applicant actually needs to do the consultation.
Point of order, Mayor, I don't think the seconder, he seconded the motion. I think you can put a procedural motion up if it's a seconder. We can only take a procedural motion if we're in debate. We're not properly in debate yet.
Yes, we are.
I haven't debated with you.
Debate
We're not in
after you
debate.
seconded.
You're just giving your point as a seconder. You're speaking to the motion as a seconder. We're not in
We're not
debate.
debating.
A procedural motion can be moved as soon as it's moved and seconded.
Any procedure says you must be in debate. Happy to
Anyway.
provide it.
I'm not, and by the way, Councillor Bartling, I'm not moving a procedural motion. I'm foreshadowing that that's what I'd like to do.
Madam Mayor, I reckon this deserves some debate today.
I think we do need to debate it today so that we have all the issues out on the table. We can't keep pushing this off and then a new thing coming up. We have been briefed already by staff. We sent them away with a number of things. We could have at that point, of course, started talking to people, so it didn't need to rely on the late agenda item. I think we need to make sure that we absolutely get to staff whatever is necessary today, because this application obviously is in relation to something from New Year's Eve, so time is becoming an issue for it. Councillor
So I just have one question. The applicant has advised the alcohol limit per guest.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah, I reckon too, but how's he going to police that?
Sniffer dogs.
Apparently they're going to check on entry, but there's a lot of people going to be coming through. He's only one person, so is he going to have other people there to help him police that, or?
There's also going to be no drugs.
Do you want to go next?
Look, this is not a one-person show. This will have substantial staff on a number of fronts if you look at the application, so. Councillor Bartley.
Thanks, Mayor Melissa. I copped the phone calls this morning because people did read the late report in depth as a result of Councillor Richter's putting the report up on Facebook. I then printed out a map, contrary to the map, and put the houses in, as someone said, maybe a little bit further than a kilometre away. It's a cobweb, absolute cobweb. The people that contacted me are the close receptors and, as you say, stud horse owners. The hours that we were giving during the information session were a little bit lenient compared to what's in the report. There's significant sessions in there of entertainment. I'm anticipating not only these areas will not enjoy it, I'd say Canning Vale, which is more densely populated, which is just over the Condamine, will suffer or have the music in their ears where they like it. The other thing raised, and I don't know whether you're familiar, in 2011 we had significant flooding. Now this area is called Jews Retreat. I've only observed that area for some 60 years and watched the floods go through there. It's where the convolence of Swan Creek and Condamine come together. Condamine gathers Emu Creek, Farm Creek and all those catchments of Spring Creek and feeds it down through there. It's a highly reactive floodplain. It can happen overnight, it can happen within hours, but that place will be underwater. And I think for all reasons concerned, the flooding would be a major safety issue. Now, they do try and address it in the point saying, we've taken into consideration it is a floodplain and we're going to put measures in place. I don't think you can, we put measures in place when East Warwick goes under, but we still can't control it. That's a major floodplain, and I think for safety reasons, that would be my planning reason for knocking it back. This application is the main cause is the people that attend this event, their safety. The other reason is you can't secure it. The road beside this, Braithwaite's Crossing Road, is a public road. There's no way known that people can't accumulate along there and have free entertainment. That can't be controlled because it's not under the control of this. I think we've got security issues there. It's fairly loose. During the information session, it said it was a lot smaller event in the scenic rim. It wasn't to the extent of 800 proposed.
I don't commented on that. It was that meant the property size.
Right. I thought the number of people that attended was less. But in my opinion, if you want some kickback from the community, if we approve this, all we're going to do is invite a flogging from the community, and for just reasons.
Thank you, Councillor Bartley. I would actually concur with Councillor Bartley. My principal concern on this is that the camping is within the flood overlay. And it's a time of year where we can get very big deluges from weather systems in the Gulf. I don't think it's possible to condition this. 800 people camping in a floodplain, you're not going to be able to move them out, even with alarms. They will have that. It's a family thing. People go along with small babies and children. Trying to get 800 people out in that scenario, my requirement would be that the entire thing was conditioned that we could cancel it depending on the weather forecast, but I don't think that's going to be acceptable to festival organisers. And we wouldn't allow camping. If someone was coming to us to apply for a campground, we would not allow it in the flood overlay. Even though this is only one night, I simply don't see how we can risk those people because it's not going to be the festival organisers and it's not going to be the property owner. If something bad happens during this event and there is a loss of life, it will be on this council.
Absolutely.
And we will be the ones who are hung for it, quite rightly, because we're the ones who are approving whether or not it is safe. And safety is one of the key items that we have to consider in this application. Councillor McDonald?
Madam Mayor, I concur with both yourself and Councillor Bartley in regards to the flooding issues. I also have concerns in regards to community consultation. I don't believe enough has been done and considered in regards to community feedback, and it is our job as councillors to represent the majority of our community and the best interests of the community. So I concur with both of you and I'll be voting as such.
Councillor?
Madam Mayor, I'm a big supporter of events, but I have a few issues with this. So we've got 800 people each day for 5 days. I didn't see any provisions for showers.
I think there were facilities.
Yeah, they were only toilets and hand basins.
Through the analysts, we would have standard
Oh, would
conditions that
they?
we apply for
Yeah.
amenities, including showers and
Okay.
toilets.
Also, I think it's going to be pretty hard to stop that traffic from queuing on Runa Road. Probably need to keep on top of that. Also, couldn't find anything to do with fire. Is there going to be campfires allowed around those camps at all?
So they have mentioned fire mitigation, but they haven't mentioned specifically whether they'll be allowing campfires or not. So we can ask that question if we proceed.
No, I just think. And lastly, so the main stage will play from 3:30 on Sunday till 5 a.m. the next morning, and then Monday from 7 a.m. till 2 a.m. Tuesday it'll go from 11 a.m. till 11 a.m. the next day, and then it'll start again at 5 p.m. till 12 a.m. And we also need to be aware on certain days the residents out there can hear Morgan Park. Correct.
Yeah, I have a problem if we proceed, ignoring for me, the flood issue is a stopper. If we went ahead, I also have issues around noise, and my principal concern is around the time of year because we have no staff. So there is going to be no ability for people to make complaints. I think that is a real problem. I don't think we can rely on the festival organiser to field complaints from residents that should be coming to council. And I have concerns that if we were going to allow it, we would have to provision for staff to be on for that period.
And another concern of mine is, as an owner of a caravan who camps, well, not frequently, but whenever possible, there's no dump point out there. If people are going to camp for 5 days, they're going to need a dump point.
No, they had provisions for
they do.
They have? I must have missed that one. No, there's no dump point. So what's their provision for that?
There was in there was a provision of toilets. That's all.
Well, you need a dump point if you're going to empty your cassette out of your caravan. You can't empty it into another toilet because then that toilet needs to be emptied as well if it's a portaloo.
Through you, Madam Mayor, you raise a very valid point. We will have limited staff available, but also probably, and it does mention in there that they've consulted with emergency services, but you've got the New Year's Eve rodeo run at the showgrounds, which draws a lot of our police to that because it's an alcohol-based event and people know that. They enjoy a drink while they watch the rodeo, and that's what's promoted. But where will our emergency services come from? The police are already tasked to that one. They're already on their Christmas breaks too. They're probably low staffed, so we've got to give some consideration to the rest of the community in that respect.
I think that festivals are great. They just have to be located in the right spot. I'm not sure that for me this is the right spot.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Have they looked at any other locations other than this one?
Through you, Mayor Melissa, I can't answer that question. Sorry, we just assess what's put in front of us. And keep in mind, this is under a local law approved, not a planning approval. So it's just that one off event. So we don't have pre-lodgement meetings, etc. like we do for planning applications. Okay.
And through you, Mayor Melissa, is it correct, Nicole, that there's no formal public consultation provisions under the local law for employment either?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move a procedural motion that this item be adjourned until the 27th of November and that staff take 1 week in order to see if they can provide extensive more conditions to address many of the concerns that I've heard today and request voluntarily that the applicant undertake further consultation with the neighbours.
Councillor Richters, I think from the discussion around the room, we should probably go for a vote based on the flood issue, because that could mean that the staff are not expending time. If the answer is no matter if we condition it, that the flood overlay is a fundamental problem. Councillor Harslett.
I appreciate your comments on the flood issue. I think you actually said that you don't think that will be acceptable to the Sun-Dried organisation. It's not going to be acceptable to them if we say they can't do it altogether either. So I don't actually think that's a valid thing. I think if we're going to do that, let's put it to them and see what they say. If they say no, well then we say no. But if I was them, I would say yes to that rather than to cancelling the thing altogether. So when you say that won't be acceptable to them, I would imagine that I would disagree from their point of view with that.
They might find a preferable location.
But I also agree, I don't think putting a procedural motion on the table and waiting even 1 week longer will be acceptable to them either. If we're going to say no to it, we need to say no now. We need to give them the courtesy of at least having 1 month to try and make alternative arrangements. I don't think it's fair to lay it on the table any longer. In fact, I'm not trying to be critical of anyone, but I know that this was initially raised as an idea by this company back in April, from memory, because I got a phone call about it. So why has it taken until November to even come to us about the location?
So we only received the application a couple of weeks ago. So
okay, so that's on them, not on you, but I mean, that to me seems like a really...
Madam Mayor,
forethought. Your procedural motion is there unless you are happy to withdraw while we take the vote.
I move a procedural motion, and I appreciate there may not be a seconder, but you still have to ask.
Yep. Well, I was going to ask if we could have a vote ahead of yours, but if you're forcing it, is there a seconder for Councillor Richter's motion?
Procedurals don't need a seconder, do they?
So I moved a procedural motion that this item be adjourned until the 27th of November and that staff will go away and apply significantly more conditions to this application and that the applicant be requested to voluntarily conduct further consultation.
No,
you can't, sorry, Councillor,
staff
you can't direct staff as part of your motion. And can I, I'll just make a comment before you put that to the vote. All that will happen, based on what Councillor Bartley said and his knowledge of the local residents and your reaction to your Facebook page, is you are going to be bombarded with more submissions, and then it'll come back to council with a whole lot more information of people against the event. That's effectively what you'll get out of delaying it. You won't get any more rigorous conditions than what the staff have already done. They've already responded to what came out of the CIS, and I think you're putting the staff in an invidious position where I'm not sure we can condition it to address the real issues that have been raised today.
Well, I disagree, but thank you.
Okay, so we have Councillor Richter's procedural motion. All in favour? Councillor Richter's, all against? Everyone else? Okay, let's move on from that one. Do I have someone who will suggest a motion?
this one and have it defeated first,
Yes, I
Or do
think
we do
that's
an
about
amendment
this.
to it and then?
No, just put this up first.
Or you can put an alternate motion.
We can.
Well, could I put an alternate motion?
Sorry, this was originally moved and seconded.
It was
before you
already
said
moved and
yes.
seconded.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was the mover.
So, yes, so we can actually go to a vote on this, but unless you.
I would actually quite like to go to a vote with the amendment of we have the right of, whatever, however it should be worded, but the right of veto to cancel based on weather.
But I think there's
Whatever the
more
right
than
wording around that would be. Sorry, I don't know off
There
the
is,
top of my head.
there is a lot more conditions to
more-
add if
more than
we,
weather.
if we have that, so we'd be in a,
I'm not sure we can actually do that under local law, because we need to give a notice of a decision.
Okay.
That's
Either
not
way.
really quite in a decision, so that would be a difficult thing to enforce.
And I think Mayor was picking up on your earlier point about the liability issues associated with the flood event, that would actually make it worse, Councillor Harslett.
because if we didn't cancel and then there was a flood event and we're sued, we're in an even worse position than if it was on the applicant.
Fair enough.
That's probably true, yes. So, if we go to a vote on the current motion on the table, that we receive the report and approve the application subject to those conditions, all in favour? No one, all against? Everyone other than, what are you, Councillor Richters?
I'm abstaining.
Okay, everyone other than Councillor Richters who's abstaining?
That's no, isn't it?
That's
a no.
So unless anyone
No,
wants
Mayor,
to.
I'd like to have it noted that I abstained from the vote.
Yeah, it's been noted. I'll repeat again for everyone, every vote in this room is recorded. You don't have to call a division or ask for no.
Yeah, can I just clarify one point? So unlike a planning application where the recommendation isn't accepted, which is not a decision, this is a decision?
Do we have to actually
or do we need a motion to
further
confirm that?
resolution to not approve?
Do we need a plan?
Use it.
I think we will need a decision to not approve it here.
Okay.
So the officers can act on that.
So if we have a further resolution that council received the report and refuse the application for a temporary entertaining event for the festival under council's local law, full stop, or should we put a reasoning? Or
You should have a planning reason.
We will need to provide a reason to the applicant, so we
Yes,
can focus on that safety aspect.
if we say due to the proposed location being within
flood-prone area.
within council's flood overlay.
Yeah, within our, it's in a gazetted floodplain, it is a gazetted floodplain.
Yeah.
And the safety issues related to it.
Okay, so do we have a mover for that motion? Thank you, councillor Bartley, and a seconder, councillor Windle. If we go to a vote on that motion, all in favour? Everyone other than councillors Harslett and Richters, and those against? Councillor Richters
I'm going to
and
abstain from
councillor
that
Harslett
because,
is
yeah.
an abstention. Thank you.
And I'll call
Okay.
division, Madam Mayor.
Pardon?
Because you will. They haven't got anything to do with the toilet side.
One, I think actually, can we go to 1 o'clock? Yep. We might be able to.
Kerrick, yeah.
Wastewater, only for the wastewater.
Okay, moving on to item 16, reports on deputation or conferences. I'll make this very quick. There's nothing really in addition to what I've included in my reports. I think I think it's a good idea for us to do this when we do go to conferences or where there are significant things that we attend, just to give some more information to the public, particularly when they involve costs. So if everyone's happy just to have those unless there were questions. Yes, councillor Bartley.
I'd just like to compliment you on the briefness of this report. It's very easy to read and I get everything out of it I want to get out of it. So that's like the sort of reports I like.
Thank you, councillor Bartley. I was trying to make it user-friendly for the public, who often say our agendas are too long. They're not the only ones who think that, I have to say. So, yes, okay, thank you very much. So we have a recommendation that my report on the LGAQ Annual State Conference be received. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Pigeon, thank you, and a seconder, Councillor Windle. All in favour? Unanimous, thank you. And a motion that the Mayor's report on the Darling Downs South West Queensland Council of Mayors meeting held 20 October 2024 be received. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Dean, thank you, and a seconder, Councillor Windle. All in favour? Thank you, unanimous. Okay, item 17, consideration of confidential business items. We have a recommendation that in accordance with provisions of section 254J3 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, that we resolve to close the meeting to the public and move into committee to discuss confidential items. And the reasons for confidentiality are as set out in the recommendation. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Harslett, thank you, and a seconder, Councillor Dean. All in favour? Thank you, and we reconvene at 12:45 p.m. We have a recommendation that council not make an ex gratia payment to the YMCA Queensland for the lost revenue claim, as council has no contractual obligation to make such payment and or claim under the current contractual arrangement, and that council continue to act in good faith and liaise with the YMCA in regard to the necessary repairs to the hydrotherapy pool. We have a mover in Councillor Richters and a seconder in Councillor Pigeon.
Point of order, Madam Mayor, have we alerted the gallery that they can go back in?
Which one?
I think there was just Janelle. councillor Wantling. Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. All in favour? Unanimous, thank you. And item 17.2, we have a recommendation that council pursuant to section 142 of the Local Government Regulation 2012 sell the land as described in attachment 1, sale of land for overdue rates list 24/25, and delegate its power to the Chief Executive Officer to take all further steps under Chapter 4, Part 12, Division 3 of the Local Government Regulation 2012 to complete the sale of land or end the sale procedures if appropriate. We have a mover in councillor Richters and a seconder, councillor Wantling. Thank you. Okay, all in favour? Unanimous, thank you. I'm not aware of any general business. No.
Just a question, Madam Mayor, regarding our policy that's coming forward for opening up the information session to the public. Is it still under construction?
It's in the information session for December, so it will then come to the December meeting.
Thanks, Madam.
Okay. Any other questions of business? We close. We close the meeting at 12:47. All in favour? Unanimous.